right. It is 6:04. I call the regular school board meeting of the Blytheville School Board to order. We have a quorum with Ms. Carloni, Billy, Toby, Michelle, Desmond.
Ms. Wells just texted me and said that she's trying to sign on but didn't get ID. She didn't need an ID, did she?
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 members present, so we do have a quorum. And we'll start the meeting with old business. We had talked about scheduling a work session on policies as well as a work session on superintendent expectations and goals. So I think that we ought to have 2 separate work sessions and one for policies. So if the board members would please email me what policies they're interested in looking into, that would be great. And we could schedule that before our next meeting. And then I would like to first schedule the superintendent expectations and goals, which Mr. Ashley has already sent me his goals for the year, so we can go from there. Are there any dates or days that do not work for people, or should we just maybe stick with a Monday? If no one has any input, I'll just pick maybe a Monday, an upcoming Monday.
That's fine. Any day with me is fine.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just plan on scheduling that and go from there. The second item in old business is renaming the Effie Lee Terrell Awards Assembly. Ms. Johnson, would you like to speak to that?
Over, you're muted. Can you unmute her, Mr. Williams?
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. I brought up at the last meeting that I would like to rename the Effie Lee Terrell Awards ceremony to the Jan Sinclair Awards ceremony. I want to reiterate the fact that Jan taught for the Blytheville school system for 37 years. She taught 35 years in the classroom and 2 years as a counselor. If you talk to any kid that is probably, 30 years old or older, and you ask them who their favorite teacher was at the high school, it was either going to be Jim Robert or Jan Sinclair. With all that being said, the fact that she gave us through a living will a stipend of $203,468.53. I think with all of that, I think it would be a just thing to do to rename the awards ceremony. There isn't 5 people that walk the halls of the Blytheville School District that know who Effie Lee Terrell is. And that's my feeling. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we change the name of the Effie Lee Terrell Awards ceremony to the Jan Sinclair Awards ceremony.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Before y'all do that, here's a couple concerns I have. You know, in 30 or 40 years, this same conversation may be held by the next board and by the next group of people that could be said that nobody knew who Miss Jan Sinclair was. Would it, and if we take away the name, I mean, I never knew Miss Effie Lee, and some people may have, but I think the honor is the honor. Not to say that there shouldn't definitely be something pretty established and pretty good with Miss Sinclair's name on it. Um, is there a possibility for us, establishing a Jansen Claire scholarship banquet or something like that? And of course, there's more than enough money to establish that and give actually the awards out who got scholarships. But my guess is we're probably going to look at one or two, maybe scholarships a year, or possibly even three, of different amounts. Um, that's just a mention. It's not anything we have to do, but it's just a thought that something could be. Of course, now the scholarship itself in her name is going to be made. I think it could be a lot of emphasis could be put on it, the scholarship itself at the FEE school, as it would be. But I don't know. I just kind of wanted to put that in there. Because in 30 or 40 years, this may be the same conversation being had about the Jansen Claire scholarship. I just wanted to add that in there.
In 30 or 40 years, I'd have no problem with changing it to another one by the same token. You suggested having something for Jan Sinclair about scholarships. Well, that's what the award ceremony is. It is the awarding of all the scholarships to our kids. It's the same thing. So,
Well, a lot of times when years pass and people are forgotten, I've seen it done where they would hyphenate the names. For example, the federal building in Memphis was one thing, and then when they wanted to add Judge Horton name, they just hyphenated. They didn't take the original person's name off the federal building. They just added hyphen Horton to the end of it. So is it a possibility that it can still be the F, because I don't know her either, but Effie Lee Terrell / Jane Sinclair Awards assembly? So even both their names will still, because if she may still have family around that might be offended or whatever, but at least it'll still be honoring both of them. Evidently, they thought that she did enough. Ms. Terrell did enough that they started the award. So
I have absolutely no problem with that. None at all. And I'll amend my motion as such.
I wish that it would go to Blytheville High, the name of the school, and then we name scholarships after them. That's mine. Because whether somebody give $1 to $1 million, it's still gonna be a problem. One person may come next year and give that $1 million. So are we gonna change it again because they gave that $1 million?
Probably, I would.
Well, I would hope not, because that's
$1 million is $1 million.
I would, I support whatever the board's decision is, but I went back and did just as you asked and talked to some of the constituents in my zone. And there was some talk that they wanted to include Gene Hinton's name, as well as, adding value to the community and from the district and being a lifelong educator in Blytheville.
Mr. Hammett.
I think if we get into naming names, I like the idea of having a scholarship or maybe a Jan Sinclair Awards podium, the platform or something to honor her. But I think we're gonna narrow a lot of people out, that a lot of different people have strong feelings. And I would like for the Blytheville School District Awards program to be all inclusive, because maybe some people may have different thoughts and feelings about Miss Sinclair. So that would just be my, just something for us to think about or consider. And I fully like the idea that Mr. Ashley recommended, maybe a scholarship. But I was just thinking there, you can have like a custom platform or podium, the Jan Sinclair podium, and how we, celebrate her that way. But there's going to be a lot of different people that have a lot of different emotions and ties to other people. So, and one of the things that a lot of people were pushing in my zone was to name it after Gene Hinton. So, just taking all into consideration, I think, Miss Lewis's recommendation just to have the Blytheville Awards program and give the people that may give $1 million, give them a scholarship next year. But I don't want to put our awards program up for sale or highest bid either.
I have no problem with that, and I agree with you, Mr. Hammock, totally. But that also would preclude what my next thought was, as I was thinking about the old gym to be renamed the Gene Hinton Field House, but that would preclude that too. So whatever the board wants, I have no problem with going back to the Blytheville High School awards ceremony and then doing it the way Desmond had suggested. Pick something and name it after Effie Lee, and pick something and name it after Jan. And by the way, Jan endowed her own scholarship too, besides the money she gave us.
Toby, did you say name the new gym after Gene Hinton?
No, the old gym.
Oh, the old. Are we going to knock that one down soon? Or?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but that's
No.
all right. That's
No.
all right. We don't have to do it.
Why don't we do this, if there's no further discussion on this item, why don't we carry it to our action items, and we can make a motion there, and if there's any further discussion, we can do it then. Would that be okay?
Sounds great.
And
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great.
we do have some time to work with, especially if we're looking at something named for any kind of scholarship program or anything like that. We do have some time to hash over and talk about it.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, well, moving on, one of the other old business items was track security. Mr. Ashley, are you going to present on that, or will Brandon be presenting?
I guess you and I both can. If you've not went out and walked on the new track yet, it's really nice. If you've never walked on that type of track where it has it's a sprayed on foam that actually has a cushion run or walk to it. Anyway, yeah, our concern is security on anything that we have. Obviously, we want to try to find a happy medium that we can, still be able to allow our patrons, our community members that truly do walk on it and use it as an exercise piece, but also at the same time secure it up enough that pardon me, that no four-wheeler or a bicycle, for that fact, that could get through there, because that could destroy it. So in putting a camera out there, either, I know we already have, Mr. Harper, a camera that points out that way, whether it's close enough or what, I'm not sure, but I think you could add in maybe to that point.
Yes, we're actually looking at replacing the camera that Mr. Ashley is referring to. It was purchased approximately 10 years ago, and the field of view is pretty narrow, and the resolution, as well as low light ability to record, is lacking compared to some of the modern technology. Mr. Williams and I have researched several different camera models, excuse me, and we're looking at purchasing Some of those, we found them for a pretty reasonable price. Used to our Axis brand cameras, which are great cameras, but we've moved to Sony and Hanwha cameras over the last few years for I'd say about a quarter of the cost that we were paying for the Axis cameras. And my point is, we're looking at one of those types from one of those manufacturers for installing in that location to help with coverage. So we'll have a better field of view and be able to see if we're having any issues in low light settings, both on the parking lot there as well as the track itself.
Okay, trying to manipulate. Mr. Williams, could you let Miss Wells in? She just texted me and asked.
She's in.
But yes, and that along with, I think we're going to need to secure our the double doors out there, secure them. We're probably need to replace those two doors, probably still use the same post on each side, secure that, and that never really needing to be open for any reason unless if we're having a track meet or you know, or maintenance or the people that mow need to get out there. And then somebody brought up a really good idea today, and I can't remember who it was, about putting in the door or lock that door that we were talking about, Miss Carrington. You know, just a single door there that goes in, but then put another door in that's actually kind of got a little zigzag to it. People can get in it, but you just couldn't carry a bicycle through it or anything if you wanted to. It may be a tight fit to get in there, but not too tight that you couldn't get in, but you couldn't get in with a bicycle. Makes sense, or at least it would slow it down.
That sounds like a great idea.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or concerns on the track security? I think that those were the main items that we were concerned about, was maybe installing a camera and just having the gates locked. And we had discussed, you know, whether or not we want to have the facility open all the time, or if we wanted to do something different there. But I do think it's important, since the community members have paid for the track, to allow them to access it as well. But, you know, also be respectful of the track. Mr. Ashley, are there any particular rules, like certain kinds of shoes that need to be worn on the track or things like that?
Yes, ma'am. Tennis shoes need to be worn. And what we can do is we can post and advertise, if we're going to put it out there about the community using the track. Pretty much the same word you just used about being respectful of what the community has provided to us, and to wear shoes. And those two things are about the, you know, obviously no smoking on it, you know, no spikes, heels of any kind, things like that. I think we could, to be honest, we could probably reach out to another school that has a pretty established track program, and they could probably shoot me a picture of what they've got posted up there on theirs.
Has the police department said whether they would let us keep the RoboCop?
They haven't, but they probably won't.
Okay.
Ms. Dodd may also have some like recommendations of rules for the track.
Got his own.
Okay. Anything?
On as far as the shoes go, you have your standard track shoes that would be on the track during track meets. It's not suggested to wear those whenever students aren't on the track itself. And then just normal tennis shoes or walking shoes. I would not suggest, it wouldn't necessarily hurt the track or decrease the warranty of the track by any means, but I would not suggest people walk in the track in boots or flip-flops or barefoot or anything of that nature.
I can reach out and get some statements that's probably already on another track, and we can probably get some good ideas from both of those.
Okay, if there's nothing else on track security from any of the board members, another item that was brought up was the time frame for certification requirements for teachers. I think that was brought up mostly to address the licensure and making sure our teachers were working towards their certification. I don't know if the board has reflected on that, and maybe we can get some feedback from you, Mr. Ashley, or maybe Ms. Cole, as to what the standard is now. I said Ms. Cole, I meant Ms. Cook. And where we can work towards.
And Ms. Cook, do you mind speaking to that?
Sure, absolutely. Looking at our data this year, we hired only 10 new people total for the whole year, which is the lowest number, obviously, that we've had in a very long time, brand new to the district. Of those 10 new, 6 of those are first-year teachers. But part of those teachers also already have licenses and working, are completing license or in an ed prep program. When I look back at the teachers that we have been working with, we have 14 who are second-year teachers this year, and we have 7 who are third-year teachers. Now, all of those have to be mentored as novices for their first, second, and third year, whether they come in first day with a license or without a license. All of those in their first, second, and third year of teaching must be mentored and have a license. Out of those that are there, we are down to, I believe, about 5 people total who have not completed the form that lets me know for sure what program they're in. I've been emailing with each novice teacher who is not licensed. I've visited with them. I'm copying the principals on those emails, and almost everyone has responded to me showing that they're in a program. And by an ed prep program, I mean a non-traditional program, such as getting their Master's of Arts in Teaching, which is one of the very pathways that a lot of people use. The Apple program, which is another very popular ed prep program for non-traditional licensure. Many of them are in Arkansas Teacher Corps. In fact, we have several of our own teachers who are trainers and mentors that support the Arkansas Teacher Corps even during the summer time for that. And we have a couple that have gone the professional licensure route because of experience that they've had coming in. So like I said, we're down to to 5 or less that have not shown me that they're actually in a program. If you remember, we really, when the state required that you have only a certain amount of time to get licensed, we dug in real hard last year and sent everybody that was not licensed information multiple times. And I think almost everybody there has worked to get in it. When I say 5, those 5 may be in a program, but they have not responded to me yet. So I'll be making a visit to their building to make sure, since they have not responded by email. So we are really in much better shape than we have been in the past as far as being able to either find people that are licensed, or the people that we have that have been working towards licensure are finishing up that second and third year of their program, which means they will be fully licensed. So that's very positive news for me. Are there any specific questions that I could answer for you, Ms. Carrington, or anyone else?
So do we have 14, 7, 21? So we have about 28 teachers that are not certified.
Oh, no, well, no, sir. If they're, if they are in that 14 and that seven, many of those are certified. That's just how many are second and third year teachers.
Okay, so how
that
many,
we have to mentor.
how many non-certified teachers do we have in the district right now?
I will have to pull my numbers up and get that. I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were talking about this today, or I would have pulled those exact numbers, but I can pull the numbers and send that to you. But as I was saying before, if they are in a program like the Apple or Arkansas Teacher Corps, once they go in and complete a praxis and complete a certain section of those courses, then they get what's called a provisional license, which means that they are certified by the state until they get that final official standard license. So
my next question to you, Mrs. Cook,
yes,
is this.
sir.
So as a board, we are considering putting a time frame on non-certified teachers, that they have a certain amount of time, 3 years, 5 years, or whatever it is.
Yes, sir.
Is there a state standard or recommendation? Is it 3 years now?
The state recommends 3 years.
Okay, so I think that's what some of us on the board, a lot of us were wondering and considering. I understand what the different programs do to provide a certification or help our teachers get certified, but we want to make sure that we're giving our teachers all the resources. They're in programs to get certified, because we know there's some value and benefit there, not only for them in the future, because I don't want to have to cut or rift anybody else in the future, and that certification be a factor or something that could be a barrier or obstacle in their own personal career. So for future development of our teachers, I want it there, but I just wanted to get some guidance from the state. So if we need to make a motion to say, hey, we're going to put a 3-year mandate on non-certified teachers and give them 3 years to get certified, I just want to have the right language around that. And I definitely would like to know the number of non-certified teachers. I would just like to know.
I would be glad to get that and send that to y'all by email if that's okay. And I can give you specific numbers for you. That way we don't have to spend as much time just guessing tonight, because I can go back and look it up perhaps when I'm not on screen. But I will say this: if we can hire them and get them into a program, there's not a program out there that should take more than 3 years for them to get in and use that program and get certified. I would say that with the recommendation of the principal, it might be worth it to say that if someone is going into a 4th year, because there are sometimes circumstances that happen that might delay someone in the middle of that 3 years, that with the recommendation of the principal, as long as they are meeting all the standards in the classroom, as long as they are working towards and progressing towards that licensure, I know many districts will say they'll have that clause in there with the recommendation of the principal that they can have that 4th year. I will also say that most of them that are here that haven't been licensed into that 4th year, they have just not gotten into programs. I mean, some of them I've talked with every single year, and every single year they are going to get in a program, and then before you know it, they've dropped it. And so that's the only reason that we would even have any that are past that point at this time. But a policy, I think, would definitely help that process. I would definitely support something like that, because it would help give a little bit more teeth, as you say, Mr. Hammett, to the fact that we need you to be licensed. So you can't just hang around and hope that nothing happens.
Right. So I'm in full support. And I'm glad that you are as well. And maybe, and another thing, hand in hand, make sure we get the support, the mentorship, and the resources that they need. But I also would like for the board to consider this policy, President Carrington.
Thank you, Desmond, and thank you, Ms. Cook. I think that all sounds great. And what I propose is if Ms. Cook, you will get those numbers to us, that we could, in our policy session, which I was tentatively looking at maybe doing the 14th of September, and then maybe doing the superintendent work session on the 31st. Both are Mondays. If y'all would check your calendars and see if that will work, we can correspond about that via email. But that we could include this teacher certification in our policy work session and work out any sort of kinks in.
That I will be glad to get whatever information you need by that date. So.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Ms. Cook?
No, Aaron, I have a question for you on this work section. Are you
Sure.
planning on having a lawyer involved when we go over policies or what?
Well, I have not gotten that far, Billy. If that's something we think that we need at this point, it might be, we could get the lawyer to come, or we might have our kind of work session and then send anything that we want to approve to the lawyer to maybe cut down on billable time from the lawyer.
Well, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea when you talk about making laws for its policy changes. You definitely need somebody there to make sure everything is worded right, for to keep us out of trouble. And also on the superintendent goals, I think right now that's just a bad time to do that. I think the goals right now, the governor laying out all the goals that we need to follow. Right now, it's just a bad time to talk about goals because everybody know what the goals are. With this virus and stuff, it's just taking over the world. I think that's our goals right now, to kind of follow suit with what the state is recommending for us to do. So I think we need to think about a lot of this stuff that we planning. Thank you.
As far as the lawyer, if you would like him to be present, that's fine. Again, I think it might work well for us to work on the policy, and then we can submit our ideas to the lawyer, and he can get back to us again to cut down on billable time. As far as the expectations are something that we have been talking about as a board for months, if not years, when we hired Mr. Ashley initially. And my thought in discussing these expectations, and I think the other board members' thoughts, were to basically get everybody on the same page. So when we have his annual review in, is it December or January, that we would have some fair criteria to judge his performance against, and also to give him expectations. And it doesn't have to even be just for this year, but long-term goals as well, to improve test scores, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. How can you judge somebody on test scores right now when kids hadn't been to school since March? So I think that's something that we need to consider, and I think we already work on finance. We did a lot of cutting already. So that's just something to throw out there. I'm with the board, whatever we decide to do. I mean, I want to sit on board, but I think that we need to just be careful on setting goals at this point. And the way education is going, it's not set. You set goals, then you try to reach those goals, and education will pass you by. I think the best thing when it comes to education is to keep up with it. Keep us informed and keep up with what's going on right now. Goals are good, without a doubt. I think everybody should set goals, but one thing about it, in this day and time, the way education is changing real fast, if we set some goals today, then tomorrow those goals are going to be outdated.
That may be the case, Mr. Fair, but at least the board would know together what our expectations are and what we're working towards as a group. And that's my feeling. If there are other board members who would prefer not to have a work session, y'all can respond in the email and tell us you think it's unnecessary and we won't have a quorum and we won't get together and have the session. I personally feel like we need to do.
Madam President, how can we effectively evaluate or provide any feedback without the goals for our superintendent? I understand these are unprecedented times and we're dealing with the pandemic, but in every organization and every business or every walk of life, people are preparing and making goals. So I'm for it. I support it, and I go along with whatever the board decides to do. But I hope we do have a quorum to go over the expectations and goals. And I'm pretty sure Mr. Ashley may have some goals and expectations he's already set that he can share with us to help guide us during that work session. But just to go off on a freelance script, I just don't see that effective governance and us supporting and helping our superintendent.
I agree with that 100%. But like I said, goals are excellent. But when it comes down to serving our kids, we don't even know what the standardized test is going to be. I mean, don't nobody know. I think the Secretary of Education don't even know. So what I'm saying is, if we're gonna set goals, let's try to set some goals that we're gonna be able to reach, and that we got to understand what these goals going to be. Right now, it's just a bad time for goals. Once everything gets back to normal, then yeah, we can set all the goals we need to set. That's my intake on that.
Ms. Cook, has the governor waived standardized tests for the time being?
No, ma'am, he is not. We still are signed up to take standardized tests in the spring. We just haven't been given any details about what it looks like as far as our report card and that kind of thing. And I think that would only change if we were not allowed to be in school full time, as we right now we're face to face. If something should happen like it did last year, I think that might change it. But I will say, listening to the report today, both the governor and Commissioner Key both discussed the fact that they want us face to face as much as possible, and that unless an entire school has an outbreak and a school may shut down, that they hope not to have to shut down schools across the state like they did in the past, unless something really, really changes. And I think that's why they've had us planning the virtual options and other things. So as far as I know, we'll probably move forward with testing. We're going to prepare ahead as if they were, but I do agree with Mr. Fair that it's going to be a very iffy situation when we don't have all of our kids right in front of us all the time.
Thank you. How many virtual students do we have now?
Chris, is it 900 and how many?
Give me just a second, I'll tell you for sure. We got it right here. Let's see, active virtual students is 903.
So we are saying that approximately 1/2 of all of our district are virtual.
Yes, ma'am. That is
Okay.
correct. As of today, 1/2 of those that are actively registered are virtual.
903 out of how many must enroll?
As of this morning, there was 1,779 students enrolled this morning.
1,700?
1,779.
Okay. Well, Madam President, back to the goals. My thing is with setting goals, it's not a bad thing, and it's not looking at, I'm speaking on behalf of how I feel about Mr. Ashley. It's not about it is about his performance, but if we don't set goals even for ourselves, we're not going to get anywhere. So it's not that we're talking about the test scores either. That's part of it, but that ain't the whole thing. Am I right? Is that what we're talking about when we set this goal?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to make sure I was clear on that one.
I think that's exactly it. We'll correspond via email about the work sessions, and I'll pick out some dates and I'll send them to you. And then if they work for y'all, let me know and we'll go from there. We'll move on to our last item in old business, which is safety in sports during COVID-19.
Okay. I've asked Mr. Don Davis if he, I guess he's on here. Yeah. I've asked Mr. Davis if he'd kind of give us a report out about where we are as far as that safety in sports and all the things that we've done and we will continue to do. And so they, you know, the DESE and the AAA and everybody else has rolled out to us exactly what we've got to do. I guess before I ask you, Ms. Carrington, that is what we were talking about, isn't it? Just pretty much what are we having in place? What are we doing for the safety of our kids in athletics?
Yes, sir. I've had several concerns, and I think other board members about, you know, how the students would go about being in, you know, say football practice and what safety precautions are being taken there, as well as, you know, volleyball, band, anything like that, and just making the board aware of what our current requirements are and what we expect that to look like.
And Madam President, I would like to just throw this out in the report if the information is available. What's the threshold for us to reconvene or gather and make a decision? How many positive tests for COVID-19 is acceptable? I know we want none, zero, but in the case of, you know, a possible outbreak or a player or student athlete comes down with COVID-19 while participating in sports, when do we say, let's stop, let's, you know, let's reconsider some things? So what safety factors and measures and are we proactively looking at when we make decisions about the future?
I think we've got the answers to your question. Mr. Davis, do you mind kind of sharing? You know, it's pretty well planned out as far as what our requirements are for us in order for us to continue as participating in that sport. And also, if there's a COVID case, 2 cases, how many people will have to be quarantined from it, but not only in athletics, but also in the school. We're pretty well versed in that routine. Mr. Davis, but turn to athletics if you don't mind.
Okay. We're keeping in touch with other athletic directors, administrators, coaches from the other schools also. We, in our practices, where every day after the practice, the coaches go in, they wipe everything down. We go use the foggers and fog the whole building, the gym, or the football field, practice area, the field house. On that, we've made arrangements for the until just recently, we haven't been using the locker rooms for anything. We did get okay from AAA to start using the locker rooms now some, but still they're not hanging out there the whole time. That they go in shifts into the locker room. So there's still some of that social distancing. We've gotten away with a lot of the water cups that they just fill the cups and throw away. We're not doing those. We're either using individual water bottles, what the kids were using all during practices. They brought their own water bottle from home, full. They used it while they're there at school. They took back home with them. Now, since we have started games, had a football game Friday night, we limited the number of fans that could be there on the football field visiting side and on the home side. We'll start volleyball tomorrow afternoon against Fort City, and then we'll go on the road Thursday with volleyball. Again, we're limiting the number of fans that can come to our football games to 200 visitors. We're not taking our band cheerleaders on any away games. The other schools are not bringing their band cheerleaders to the game. That limits the number of fans also. During the games, we're using every other row of bleachers. We got one row marked off, every other row marked off, and not using those. We are letting families of 4 to 6 or 7 maybe if their family in the same household, they can sit together without being the 6 feet apart. Others are supposed to be the 6 feet apart. We're trying to force that to the best of our ability. We have to tell a few every now and then, a couple of times to spread back out again. But in all Friday night, they did pretty well. Again, we're doing at the ball games. We have the hand sanitizing stations there, wiping down the bathrooms every so often. Also, what else? We're following all this CDC ADH protocol when dealing with the COVID. As far as a number of when we cut off, say, hey, no more sports, I don't have an exact number. I don't think the state's giving an exact number. It's if we have one that is tested, there's anybody that's tested, they're supposed to tell us they're tested. At that point in time, they are to be quarantined, self-quarantined, not come back to school anymore until they get tested. Once they get tested, it depends then on what the outcome is. If they're positive, of course, then they go into 14-day quarantine. We let the ADH know who this person been in close contact with that we know of. And then they do the background tracing on that, the backwards tracing on that. And they call the ones that need to be called on that. If the student player is not negative, if not positive, he's negative, at that point in time, if they have not been in close contact with somebody and have no symptoms, they come back to school at that time. If they're having symptoms and have been in close contact with somebody, then positive and negative don't matter. They're 14-day quarantine. Can't come back to get a doctor released from that. If they're negative and having symptoms, then they have to be symptom-free for 48 hours. No temperature 100.4 higher within 40 hours before they can come back to school. And those days have been changed. It went to 10 days, went to 14 days, and now it could go 10, it could go 14, depending on what the ADH says at that particular time.
Mr. Davis. Yes, Mr. Davis, how many students, before we need to make a decision to maybe pause sports or extracurricular activities, what are we gauging this by before it becomes an outbreak or something that's uncontrollable? If we see a trend or a spike or an outbreak in a certain number of cases, when will the district, maybe that's a board decision, but from the guidance that you've been given from maybe ADE or ADH, what are we looking at? When are we going to play it safe and say, hey, we may have a problem here? 1 student, 2 students, 3 students, student athletes, 4 or 5, and what's the frequency of us testing our student athletes after they play these ball games and engage in activities with other schools and districts?
We have no guidelines on when they have to be tested because we play the game. I don't think we've said anything, hadn't said anything like that. They're playing games. They're being at school. Test them just because they play the game. Test them because they come to school. That's not one of our choices that I know that we have picked or decided on. If they start having the symptoms, then it's their choice whether to be tested or not. But if their symptoms are it had a temperature 100.4 higher or the other symptoms, then they don't come to practice that day until they're 100, till they're no more of those symptoms for 24 hours, 48 hours.
Right. We do understand that there are some asymptomatic people out there that may have it and don't know it. So that's why I was asking about the testing. And if these students are engaging in sports, full physical contact with other, schools and districts, we need to set, maybe after every 2 games, every student athlete is tested. After 3 games, after every game.
If you test the athlete, then immediately they're quarantined until they get results back, and then depending on what, at that point, they could be even more quarantined for longer than that. So if you require them to be quarantined every 2 weeks, then you can just stop the season, because it will stop.
But does that bring any concern to you as the athletic director that we may have a prolonged outbreak or a spike in cases, and we're just, sending these kids back out there, then they're going to class, and I know it's tough to social distance in the schools, and these kids are going home to their parents, grandparents, and guardians. Does that concern you at all, or are you okay with that?
Does concern me? Yes.
Okay.
Again, it's to a point where I don't know which one you go by there at that point. Tell the student, hey, you can't, since you played the game this week, you can't play next week. I don't see that being a thing. But if you don't have to be tested, they're not going to play the next week. They won't be able to. Not the guys they have now.
And there's no liability on the district if a student catches the coronavirus while participating, or we don't know where they may have gotten it, but we are free from all liabilities. Has the student signed a waiver or any kind of documentation there as well?
No.
Okay.
Desmond, I did a training earlier this week, and that was one of the topics. And one of the things they even said, like, even if the school, if a teacher or anybody employed tests positive, then the school is not going to be held liable, because they will be required to be able to prove that they actually got it from the school. Or the same with the students. They basically the parents will have to prove that they got corona from playing football or playing volleyball, as opposed to going into the store and walked in the store and got it, or they got it from their grandparent or something like that. So they said that, the schools will not be held liable for, if somebody wanted to come and challenge that. That's not going to happen.
Good deal.
That's a good point, Michelle. And also, Mr. David, that was an excellent report. As a referee, but let me know, we just finished a summer of baseball. As a referee, we have responsibility too. And I think it's everybody concerned about the kids, everybody concerned about everything that's going on in the world right now when it comes down to this virus. Also, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be taking temperatures of referees. That's what we had to do all summer as an umpire and a referee. And you talking from, this is the horse's mouth. It's now take temperatures and referees. And also, you're going to see some things in games that at the end of the game, kids not going to shake hands. You probably wonder why in the world they're not shaking hands in a good game. That was one of the requirements that we had as baseball umpires, that they didn't shake hands at the end of the game. Normally they shake hands and say good game. And also we had restricted on the dugout. They could hang out outside the dugout. Normally we don't let them hang out outside the dugout. So it's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen. And I think people's concerned, but I think listen to the governor. I mean, I think they, like Ms. Cook said, I think they'll do everything in the world to try to keep school going and keep sports going.
Now let me speak to that. We're always following the AAA guidelines, and we're following ADA guidelines, Arkansas Department of Health. Arkansas Department of Health and the AAA have collaborated and come up with the guidelines and rules that all of our athletes are under. They're getting their temperature taken daily. They're practicing social distance in the locker room and in the field house, out on the football field. There's direct guidance as far as how we're supposed to be on the sideline also, as far as spread out from each other. So yeah, we're closely doing everything the ADA and AAA are telling us to do. So, you know, yes, there are people with that are asymptomatic. That's what the whole world's faced with right now is the asymptomatic folks. Um, we go by symptoms. Someone's not feeling well, we immediately tell them, hey, you need to go home. We send them home, and we're gonna tell them to get tested, especially if they're telling us they don't feel well with some. Yeah.
I just have one question. I said I wasn't gonna speak, but Mr. Davis, not just concerned. I know we got our team under control, but when we get our rival team and they come to us, are we able to see their temp if they got a temp? Are we gonna monitor them when they come in or no?
Our coaches monitor our players. Their coaches monitor their before they come, before they leave their place. Every coach is supposed to check their team at that point. We checked all the referees, all the workers at the game before the game started, and most of them had already been tested that day at school. Also the workers, not the students. But now the students, the ones that aren't virtual, will be tested every day at school, and they'll be tested again before the game that night. But the other team is responsible for checking theirs.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. I know we're taken care of. I'm not worried about us. I was just worried about the other ones, and they're dying to play football or whatever. They truthful. That's all.
Yeah, Carolyn, that is an excellent question, and that's what we did all summer. Each team was responsible for taking their own team's temperatures, and like Mr. Davis said,
I understand what Mr. Davis said.
That was a good question.
I got that one. My thing was with us being protected and trusting others for their their thing. I'm good. I don't need to elaborate. I got it. I got what he said.
AAA has given us fair warning. If they hear of us or the team that we're playing, we're not practicing the social distancing, all of the guidelines that they have put in place, and that goes for fans too. If we're not making them wear masks, not holding them accountable, AAA has told us we'll come in and not let you play. So, they're still that we are. So.
Miss Ashley, it's hard to hear you. But I'm barely trying to hear, but I heard what you said, but the voice is not coming through loud.
It's very difficult hearing you. You're almost garbled.
Yeah.
Chris, you got any recommendations?
Well, Mr. Ashley checks on his volume. I had a question. It's been a while since I've played high school sports, but don't you exchange like a roster with the other team, or do you not turn in rosters of the players with their numbers? And could you not put their temperatures on that roster as just an extra safety precaution, so you would know that the other team is not infected?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you could, but if they're going to lie about me, they'd lie writing it down also. If they're not going to do the job, they'd be the same thing. I don't think having them write it down on a sheet of paper instead of just saying they took it, I don't think it'd make a difference. My own personal opinion, it would.
Mr. Davis, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will hope, I suggest, it's been a lot of questions answered and a lot of comments and a lot of good points from Mr. Hammond, Mrs. Carrington, Mrs. Sims, and Mr. Fair. But can we just kind of move on with time constraint on this subject about this sports? Because the last question, for instance, if you just think all of us, you can put a player number down with the temperature, But don't you know temperature rise and fall? And another thing, those other teams to the Mrs. Lewis, those other players is just going to, they want to be precaution as well as our team. But number one, they'll take care of their business. We take care of ours. Hopefully everybody be considered with that. And they're not going to bring a player to play, to mingle in with other players when they got a temperature or they've been sick or quarantined or whatever. So my question is this: what about these people attending the games here in Blytheville with the lap babies or children in their hand? Mr. Davis, are we going to allow that? This is a good question. Are we going to streamline that, since I've heard that we will have each player will have 6 family members to attend? The other question, are we participating in having the concession stand? No one keyed in on that point. Concession stand and about them wagging all these kids into these games. Like you said, we're going to check temperatures at the gate of the entrance. But those are 2 things I would like Mr. Davis to answer for me. And also, those 2 things, the concession stand and about these children entering into the game.
If the parent brings their child to the game and
the children, those small children, as Mr. Hammond mentioned, a lot of people are systematic. So like I said, are those children, or is going to be just adults or coming into the game? Didn't you say 6 family members per team can attend?
No, I said if family members are together, if family members are there, they can sit together.
Okay.
So
it was.
And so there could be 6 or 7 family members there. If they have the ticket and they pay to get in, then yes, we'll let them come in. And that's telling a parent that you can't come in just because you have their child with them. I don't think will.
What about the concession stand?
The concession stand, we didn't run this past week, but the next time we have a football game, we're planning on going to open it. It'll be probably just bottled drinks, sealed food, candy bar, popcorn, not popcorn, candy bar, potato chips, things are already bagged up. As of right now, we're not planning on doing the grilled burgers or the grilled hot dogs or the cheese where they have to dip it out, but anything that's pre-packaged, we're planning on something at the next time we have it. It's planned at this point in time.
You said next time?
Yes, the next game, we're planning on doing it the next game.
The next time, see that? Now look, listen, y'all listen at that. The next time we might be doing that. That's the one thing right there could be spread of this virus. And another thing I would like to say, my point of view, if it comes down with this virus rising, the rates, or like I heard the governor today, I don't think it's a board decision. I think it should be Mr. Davis, director of student, and Mr. Ashley decision on as far as us proceeding with the sports, whether it's in football, basketball, volleyball, or what. I do not feel nowhere that should be, the board should make a decision on that. And that's all I have to say about that. And I just hope we can continue on to move on to another item.
Are there any more questions about safety in sports? Thank you, Mr. Davis and Mr. Ashley. I actually meant to make a couple of announcements at the beginning of the meeting. One being teachers who and administration who completed their first day in school. I imagine you have a day on your belt. And then also for board members, if you leave the meeting, if you would please let us know before you leave the meeting. The past couple of meetings, we've had people leave. But Teresa needs to note the time that you left the meeting so we can keep track of our quorum. And then also on voting, Teresa has was hoping that we could leave our hands raised for a little bit longer so she can get a full count of everybody when we're voting. So with that, we'll move on to information items and reports. Mr. Ashley, would you like to begin with your report?
Yeah, let me know, is this volume better?
It's improved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if not, I'll probably have to reboot or go to the other computer. But yes, Miss Carrington and I had been visiting the other day, and she wanted me to send her some goals. Of course, um, they're uh, they're nothing more than what we're dealing with right now, obviously. But I don't mind reading them to you, the ones that I'd send her, because most superintendents' goals changed as of March the 15th, as far as moving forward. Um, but I'll read them to you. Got 4 goals. There's one is set the goal of returning safely to in-person instruction based on the Arkansas Department of Health and the Arkansas Department of Education's data and guidelines, while also making physical reopening decisions based on local health conditions and school-specific information. And that kind of goes back to what Mr. Hammond was talking about a while ago, is that, you know, the state may be all in red and our numbers be fine. So that would make our decision whether we're open or not. But at the same time, just the other day, starting Thursday early, when I had my meeting with Johnny T and Dr. Joe Thompson, we met. They called a special meeting. We went from there. They let us know that the new piece of data, which is very important, is that now they're breaking school districts down into their, they can draw data from your own school district, kind of like you're in a geofence. They could tell us what it looked like in our geofence, and we were in the red. So I say that to say that decision is what drove the decision from Thursday afternoon and Friday morning for us making the announcement about us doing a slow rollout or pivot to a slow rollout. Pardon me. And number 2, develop a comprehensive plan for remote learning that includes plans for full-time remote learning and for face-to-face learning. I have a pivot plan for face-to-face and virtual. That's something that all schools have got to have in place, and we're one of them. Focus on maintaining rigorous instruction and high expectations, knowing that our methods are not traditional, but possibly paving the way for the future. That is very important because because of the pandemic, it made us change and change quickly. It made us think of new ways to teach our kids, and we had to teach them from at least 6-foot distance, if not 12, in some situations. So that was a whole different thing. Number 3, focus on maintaining, excuse me. Number 4, have safeguards in place to assure financial stability well into the future. And that should be no surprise that that's one of them. That will always be one of mine. But our district has got to stay financially viable. As you know, the last 2 years, as far as absorptions, and then also the RIF, we're trying to maintain physical stability now and moving forward. And we got some things in place to make sure that happens. Some of the things we have in place is obviously monitoring our money, how much money we're getting in, knowing how much we're going to get in, and adjusting our spending to that. Not more than that, but to that. Those are my 4 professional goals, and when we do meet, I'll be glad to elaborate even more on those. Those, Ms. Carrington and I talked, and I thought I'd roll those out. Moving forward, new gym construction in progress and the financial report on that. I've asked Ms. Dodds again if she would please to be with us today and give us a little report out about the gymnasium. I know there's some things that we're still needing to tidy up, but she's on top of those. And also just say something about the track and what's going on there.
Okay, so first on the track, if anybody has not been out there to look at it yet, it is absolutely beautiful. They did a great job. I walked it last week. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. There are a couple of just dressing up and cleaning up items that we need to get done, and that'll be done within this week or the end of next week. So I highly encourage everybody to go out there and look at the track. On the gymnasium, we still do have a couple of lingering issues that I have been in communication with Mr. Ashley with, and those will be resolved within this week to going into maybe the first part of next week, but it shouldn't exceed past that.
When you talk about the track, what are the couple of things that you're talking about?
Okay, so on the track, whenever they did the structural spray on top of the track, it left, it's kind of like a red powder, essentially. It's little bitty chips that sprayed into the grass. Now then, with this being in the grass, it will not kill the grass. It will not damage the grass. It will not cause discoloration. But we need to go out. We're going to go out and we're going to rake it up and put it in bags and just throw it away. And then at the end of the shoot, it looks a little unfinished. So I was going to get with you, Mr. Ashley, on if you would like chat at the end of that shoot there to the end of to the double gates, or if you wanted me to put soil down and hydro seed it. I think chat would probably be our best guess, since those are 2 double gates that lead in and out for any trucks or future equipment that y'all have pulling in there. Have the gravel start from the double gates onto the track.
Get with me on that, Danielle, and we'll come up with a solution. But although it does look like, you know, it needs some type of ramp, not necessarily a ramp, but entry area.
Right. What we would do is we would bring in, I would suggest doing like a class 7 aggregate base and then putting a quarter minus or a class 8 aggregate base on top of that, and making it level with the track.
Yeah, just get with me and Mr. Harper, and we'll come up with.
Yes, sir.
And then, of course, the financial part of it is in there.
Mr. Ash, can I interrupt for a second?
Yes, ma'am.
If the board members and anybody else who is not presenting would mind putting their microphone on mute, it would help with some feedback that we're getting as people present. And then when you're ready to speak, just unmute yourself and speak then. Thank you.
Just a second, let me get this up. A couple of reports in there on the financial report when it came to what we were doing. bottom line is we've got about $303,000 left of Baldwin and Shell's money, and we'll, we'll spend every bit of it, and we'll make them earn every penny. So Danielle's good to work with. She really is. I can go ahead and give this report out on the second lien bond money, because you know that's what the track money is coming out of. Um, uh, Remaining balance on that is we got about $711,000 left. Now, keep in mind about I think 558,000, something like that, was coming out for the track. It's a ballpark, real close in there. And there's some other things that we're doing with that second lien money in order to move forward with our new facilities, and that is, volleyball equipment, weights, mats, landscaping. If you've not seen the arena over there, we do have landscaping within the last couple of weeks. We're trying to keep it watered because it has not rained other than Friday afternoon for a little bit. That's the first rain that I've seen since early June. So we're trying to make sure our landscaping looks good. So does anyone have any questions about the new gym construction or the track?
Do we have a completion date in mind, or are we still? We're mostly finished, but.
Yeah, right. I don't know, Danielle, when do you think we'll be able to?
For the track?
Well, that, and then also a couple items we have over at the gymnasium.
Well, the track, after I discuss with you on the chat and how we want to do that, and me getting an individual to rake up the overspray, I can be done with the track mid next week.
Okay.
And then after the meeting, or after the issue, or after the flooring samples are provided to you Wednesday afternoon and you accept them or reject them, he stated that he has his schedule available for the next week after that.
You're saying he would be available the week after that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr.
He
Ashley,
has a large job wrapping up in Atlanta.
Okay.
I just have a quick question. When we're talking about the track, I know we talked about the parking lot behind the special education building. I haven't been over to take a look at the track yet, but did we do something to that parking lot? Because that was a part of the track, and what we were proposing for some of the concerns about kids being dropped off in the buses, when it rains, the mud and the rock that's there. So I don't know, have we made any progress on that?
Well, now, the paving of that back there wasn't part of the track.
Well, I mean, part of the construction that we were going to address.
Yeah.
It may not have been a part of the track construction.
Okay.
But
we've gotten a couple of bids on that. Brandon, you may want to speak to that a little bit, but of course, what we're looking at is two different things. Is it is so low back there that just coming in and paving it would not be without a lot of bringing it up to the point that it wouldn't flood back there. So Brandon, you want to mention that? I think we've gotten a couple bids on that.
Yes, sir. So we've reached out to a couple of different vendors just to get an idea of what we'd be faced with as far as construction resurfacing that area. Reached out to one of the vendors that has assisted with construction of the new gym, as well as another local vendor. Again, just to see what we were faced with, and we were told that the tentative pricing for resurfacing using asphalt, building that area up and grading it, and then an asphalt overlay could possibly be anywhere from around $35,000 to $100,000, just depending on how involved it is. So it's looking like something that we would definitely have to bid if we move forward. But again, it's looking that like it will be probably at a minimum of around 35,000. And again, what they're telling us as far as resurfacing that area is building it up and grading it, putting it on a grade to push water away from the building and away from the walkway back there near the special education building, and then also away from the track as well. And then an asphalt overlay would be the final piece to that.
Is that low-lying spot currently causing issues for us? It causes issues with the track going forward?
Well, it's not with the track, but it is with parking and the unloading and the loading area there near the walkway to the special education building, because it is low in that particular area. Right now, it's not pushing water towards the track, but if it's built up without grading it, it could very well push it in that direction as well. So we want to make certain that that wasn't an issue.
Yeah. And that was discussed about making sure that we didn't create another problem by solving one. So that will be one of the first things that the plans would include, that make sure that anywhere the water would run off to, it doesn't create another problem. Okay. You ready for me to move on, Ms. Carrington?
Yes, sir.
There's an update on track, and I think we've talked about the track a couple of times, but I would like to kind of give a report about today, our first day of school. We think it was a success, and at this point, I'd really like to brag on all of our administrators and principals, administrators and teachers in the buildings, because folks, I want to tell you something. They have been rock stars as far as getting us to where we are right now. Even though we've not been in school since March the 13th, we have been planning, they have been planning. I'll plan with our leadership team and our guiding coalition team, the principals and the assistant principals, and then their groups would meet all through this 5 months that we have been on. I mean, it was a daily thing, or every other day they were making contact as far as putting a plan together for us to get to where we did today. Even though I know it was only a particular grades attending today, and it will be the rest of the week. I just can't brag on them enough, and I'm pretty darn proud to be their superintendent. So, but other than that, I don't have anything, Ms. Carrington.
Great. Well, if we're all done there and there are no questions for Mr. Ashley, we'll move on to Ms. Cook's instructional report.
Okay. Since we actually have only started one day, my focus tonight is just to let you know that our virtual group, as Chris mentioned earlier, we have 903 students. Because we're rolling out a slower start with the face-to-face kids, that's giving us some time to spend working a little bit more closely with the virtual students, trying to help them get logged on, help them work through technology issues, and all of that together is probably a good thing, because there are some who, especially the younger kids, that are having some difficulty learning how to log on. And so we're working through that. But I want to brag, as Mr. Ashley said, on the staff, the secretaries, the principals. Everybody has been so hands-on contacting families, because it's taken everybody. There have been people nonstop on the telephone. I don't know that there's been a minute that we haven't had the phone constantly ringing in every building asking questions. And that's a good thing, because that shows that parents are interested and they want a solution and they want to find out how things are going. But we've been taking a lot of calls. I know Lance Nettles and Chris and his team have really spent a lot of time just digging through answering technology questions. And if you haven't noticed, there is a section on our website now that allows people to go in and look for virtual learning. And they can drop down and they can ask questions in a Google form. They can ask questions on a call-in line. They can ask questions through a chat. And so we're really trying to make sure we spend this week especially connecting with the virtual students and their parents. There are some who were concerned because they couldn't get into their laptops today. And we've tried to assure them that this is trial and error, and it's okay if they couldn't get in today. We'll work with them again tomorrow to make sure that they get in. So we've got a lot of Zooms going on. I know of several teachers who were virtual who spent time Zooming in class today with some of the students that they're going to be teaching. I know of a lot of people that were making phone calls to parents to try to help them get connected. And so that's very encouraging to me, knowing that we have 903 students, and we really were not expecting to have that many. I think it's blown all of us away with how many have chosen virtual. So having about half and half is a very interesting procedure. I will say that I got into every school except the high school today. I'm going to have to go over there tomorrow, but in the 3 buildings that I went in, was extremely pleased with the procedures and the routines that were in place. The PPE that was being worn, I didn't see a single person that did not have on a mask. Even the little children had their masks on. I watched the kindergartners come in with their moms. They walked them to the door and peeked into the classrooms. And I didn't see any tears today either. And I don't know if that's because we had girls and not boys. And sometimes our boys cry more than our girls do when they're little. But I didn't see any tears at all from moms or little ones. And that may be because we've had a 5-month stint of the children being at home too. So I don't know. But it was very encouraging. All hands on deck. Any teacher who didn't have a classroom was standing in a hallway directing traffic. I don't know if you've seen the scanners that take the temperature in addition to the handhelds at the foreheads, but we also have the scanners, and Brandon may talk about those, but that went very smoothly. I watched people walk up, have their face recognized, their temperature scanned. So I literally didn't see any problems as I walked through today. Now, I know I'm sure somewhere a principal can tell me that there was an issue, but for the most part, it was quiet, it was orderly, and kids were going into their classrooms learning. I even saw the lunch ladies wheeling the breakfast down the hall on carts and delivering the breakfast. The kids were, bragging about the breakfast. They were excited about getting that. So I thought it was really good overall. We're about to get revved up, and I'll have more of an instructional type report for you on the next board meeting, because I've been in contact with about 10 different groups that I meet with every month for one reason or another. And we're setting up meeting times so that we can regularly communicate. As you know, everything in the district is one big system built up of a lot of smaller systems that work together. So we're getting all those little small systems in order so we can start reporting and sharing information. And I'll have more things to share with you next time.
Ms. Cook.
Yes, ma'am.
If things do not change at all from right now, a student that is doing virtual learning has to remain on virtual learning. How long before they can go back to real school?
We'd like for them to remain in virtual learning a semester. In their handbook and in the agreement that they signed, they agreed to stay for a semester. And mainly that is to keep a lot of jumping back and forth, because that could be a real issue for children, and even placement, trying to find places for students to do that. What we have done, Ms. Johnson, is made sure that we have enough people in every building that if a student is having trouble, like this week, those that are having trouble, we're going to really spend time with them either on the telephone or through a meeting online, so that we can make sure that there's not a problem with them being able to log on, so that will not be a factor in their education. We don't want them to come in going, I just can't do it. We're going to spend the first week or two really trying to familiarize them with all of the systems, so that lack of knowledge of technology should not be an issue for them. Now, this first week, most definitely that is. Mostly the parents are a little bit concerned about it. But as I said, we have people answering every phone line in every building, plus teachers on their phones in their rooms, making phone calls. The big thing that's going to make a difference in this is if parents will give us the correct phone number and email. I have one student that I've been told of so far that a teacher has been trying for the last week to get in contact with this family, and no one will ever answer a phone or an email. And, you know, if we can't make contact with that child, then they can't do virtual. So somehow or another, that's going to be the make or break. If we have families that will make sure that they stay connected to us, and if they don't hear from us, they need to call, because maybe they gave us the wrong number or something.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cook, I have a question. I was not a question, but I visited the primary school this morning early, and I was very impressed. And but it was two things that I noticed, and I just have a question I should have asked Mrs. Wilson. Why are there more kids in some of the rooms, since they're the same size, and also I noticed it's the same setup? Can you tell me why?
Why there were more kids in some rooms?
Yes, because it's 4 kindergarten classes as of now, and I'm quite sure that's the way it would be as far as traditional learning. And the girls was there today, and they looked so pretty, and they was happy, and every one of them had their masks on. I mean, that was just so overwhelming to see that, you know, at that age. But I was impressed, and when I enter into the building, the temperature station there, I really liked that.
Yeah.
But I did notice just two things that I was concerned about, was that since the classrooms are the same size, and I noticed there's more kids in a couple of the rooms and less in one of them, and I was wondering why.
Well, for today, that is purely based on who showed up. They're doing a great job of trying to divide out the students and make sure that everybody has an equal amount of students per classroom. But today, the girls are the only ones that came in kindergarten. There may be more girls in some classrooms than boys. Tomorrow, it may be the opposite. Also, sometimes the first day or two, we don't get all of our students. We hope that we're trying to get that message out and remind parents, you need to get there. We need to see you every single day. But we do have some parents who don't come until the second or the third or the fourth day sometimes. And of course, you know, that puts their children behind. So we're trying to get that message out into our community. School has started. We'd like to see you on the days that you're required to be there. But that is why you would see a little bit different. I noticed the same thing. One room had 5 or 6 kids, and one may have had only 2, but that's just based on the children who actually attended today. So that will even.
But I was talking about mainly total with the girls and boys, like for instance, 18, 17, and 16, you know, and I was just wondering why that was like that. The kids would distribute like that in 4 of the classes.
I'm going to let Miss Wilson, since she's on, if you don't mind, Miss Wells.
Yeah,
you and how they're distributed.
and I enjoyed your visit, Mrs. Wilson, today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So where we actually are sitting at 16, 16, 17, and 16. We had 5 new kids register in kindergarten today. So we're almost even, and we still have the boys to come tomorrow for the first day. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But why we have more seats right now available in some classes than the other is because of the like the rooms may be the same size, but how they're arranged is different. And so we did our very best to not take any major big furniture out, like the bookcases and the storage things out that we could. And so based on the storage that was available in each room doesn't have quite the same thing. So that it changed the arrangement of the room. And so some we were able to put a few more desks in than we were the others. But right now we're pretty even in the amount of kids that every class has.
Is hand sanitizer be issued daily to those 4 classes I saw today?
Yes, we have handed out hand sanitizer to every teacher, and we do. Brandon delivered us cases of it, so we have more of it. So as they run out, we can give them more, and all they have to do is go to the school nurse, and she will give them sanitizer as they run out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Ms. Sims, did you have a question?
Yes, I was just going to ask Ms. Cook, how did the system work? We know it's the first day, so it's going to have some bugs, but having just the girls for that class, and did they have, and maybe Mr. Harper can answer these questions about, did some people send the boys on the bus, and then when they got to the school, then they had to deal with that? Did it work out good?
I've not heard of a single situation where the wrong child came today.
Okay, good.
As far as I know, I don't think anybody made the wrong choice and came, but we were prepared to pull them in and keep them. We weren't going to just send them straight back home. We were going to talk to parents and find out what we needed to do. We'd never just send a child away, but we would call mom and see if we could make arrangements. But no, it seemed like everybody had the message. Seems like a lot of parents really did a good job of sharing. Of course, it was on the radio. It was on the newspaper site. It was on all social media. It was, just in so many different places. So
it worked out good.
Processes and procedures were very smooth, Ms. Sims. I was very impressed, even at middle school with older kids. They had 2 really great stations set up, one by the buses and one by the student drop off on the parent drop off. And as people came up, they scanned them. I know they were handing out registration packets. As Ms. Wilson said, she had 5 more register today at middle school. Ms. Nash was telling me, and Ms. Davis, that they had several more pickup packets today to register. So as we were saying earlier, this first week is very often a week where we get a lot more that register because they finally get in gear and realize, okay, this is going to happen. We're about to have school. So I would imagine our numbers will go up a little bit more after this week.
And can I ask one more question?
Okay, go ahead, Mrs.
One
Sam.
more question. Do you have the numbers of how many, at this time last year, how many did we have enrolled as opposed to how many we have enrolled this year? And I wanted to see, if you don't have it right now, if you can email us with that other information, and maybe we can see if the virus had anything, or people moved or chose something different, but just kind of a little estimate.
Okay, we are, Chris can give you those numbers, I'm sure, in an email that gives you the comparison of the beginning of the year now to the beginning of the year last year. But at the end of the year last year, we're a little bit down from where we were at the end of last year, but not too many. And if the kindergarten students that we're expecting to come go on and register, then we should be almost even to where we were. So to me, I think the virtual option has really helped us keep students that might have tried to go elsewhere if they didn't have that virtual option. I think it's been a really good thing for our district. And hopefully it will let us hang on to some students and provide them with a really unique way of learning. And we just hope we can get more kindergarten. That's our lowest grade level right now, and it's under the norm. I think maybe some of the moms and dads in kindergarten have been a little bit more hesitant to enroll, but we've sent a lot of messages out to make sure that the public understands that if you're 5 by August 1st, you need to come to school.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooks, along with the hand sanitizer, I forgot, what about the cleaning supplies? Have Mr.
Yes,
Harper
ma'am.
or
I'm
the,
gonna let Mr. Harper answer that question. I'm sure that's part of his
okay then,
report.
yes.
But yes, ma'am, he's got a great plan and it has been spotless everywhere I've gone. So I'll let him talk about that in his report.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no further questions for Ms. Cook, we'll move on to Ms. Cole's report.
Good evening. I was also wanted to talk about the great day. We had a great first day. Everything I've seen, I didn't have any phone calls where we had any irate parents today. And I thought that was a good idea. That was very good. I looked at the self-contained class. As you know, our district, we're doing the pivot. Okay, well, in the self-contained, the 3 medical fragile classrooms, the one at the high school, the one at the elementary, and the one at the primary school, because those numbers are small already, we're letting them come. The medical fragile, that they keep their routine going. We have the autistic children, we have the medical fragile children. So we decided in those classrooms, the principal's full agreement, and the teachers were too, to let those students come every day, boy, girl, come every day, because those numbers are already small. So social distancing wouldn't have been a big problem. So, but that went well. The problem that we thought, the issue that we thought was really going to be a problem was wearing the mask with the medical fragile children. But I'm here to tell you, it was not. The one that couple of students that we thought, oh, this is going to be a big problem. It was not. And so I was just really, really thankful for that. When I look at the 903 children total district, when I'm looking at for special education on virtual, I was very pleased and very surprised that we had that many special needs students who also chose to go virtual. At the on the special education role at the high school, we have 37 students who decided to go virtual in the special education department. Middle school 39, elementary 23, and Blytheville Primary School 16. That's a total of 115 students who decided to go virtual out of a total of 268 students, special education students or students with IEPs in the total district. Also, our ELL students at the Blytheville Primary School who chose virtual, we have 10, Blytheville Elementary 15, Blytheville Middle School 17, and Blytheville High School 8. And so that's a total of 50 of our ELL students who also parents decided to go virtual. And I thought that was that was good. And so the total out of that 50, we have a total of 71 ELL students in the district. And so out of that 71, there were 50. And we're still registering in special education and with the ELL students. Miss Punsey and Miss McClure, my hat's off to those ladies, those 2 tutors, because they work extra hard at trying to keep our ELL non-English speaking parents informed. And they go with them they take them different places and they explain to them what's going on with our rollout plan and all of that. So those ladies, I just want to give them a hand. Everybody's working hard, but I just want to say a special thank you to Miss McClure and to Miss Punsey. Also, when we were talking about certified teachers, we have 1 special education teacher that we've hired on an ALP plan, additional licensure plan, at the Blytheville Primary School. And I think she's going to be a great asset to that department, the special education department at the primary school. And she has taken on that role of being the virtual teacher. At the Blytheville Primary, they have a virtual teacher per grade level. And so now we have a virtual special education teacher. And I think that plan is going to work, and it's going to be a great plan also. At the high school, here at the, I always say like the ninth hour, we had that open position, social studies, special education position at the high school. And we had another plan with the MAT program, but that didn't work out. And then we had a lady to call. They had a budget cut at her former job. She called to see if that position was still open. And it was just a blessing because when I called her references, and also uh, just checking her out and all, it just worked out well. She's excited. She's a 19-year veteran, and 2 years she taught in another institution. And so, but she's excited about being there. I think she's going to be a great asset to the team at the high school. They've all met her today and welcomed her. She's very friendly, outgoing, very knowledgeable about special education, due process, and all the teachers at the high school going, yay, somebody we comes in knowing what's going on, and we don't have to take our time to teach them the due process. So I think she's going to be a great asset to our department, special education department at the high school. So we're just glad to have her. And if you ever met her, she's glad to be with us. So that was good. Also, our nurses. I just want to give a big shout out to the nurses. We have a great nursing team. Ms. Townsend is also our CDC contact, I guess, liaison between the school and keeping us informed of what's all going on. And also at the elementary school, Miss Russell. And then we have a new lady at the middle school, Miss Nix. She jumped right in and she's a part of that team and they're working hard. And also down at the primary school, we have Miss Landry. So I'm excited about we've had a little turnover with the in the nurse department, but I think we have a group now that's going to stick with us and work together. And I think we're going to have a great nursing department. So I'm excited about all of that. It was, like I said, it was a great first day. Had a few phone calls, but they were easily corrected. Questions were easily answered. And I'm just so excited. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Cole? I'm glad to hear that y'all had a good day. Moving on, we'll go to the operations report for Mr. Harper.
Yes, thank you. Just to follow up, Ms. Sims had some questions for Ms. Cook, asking, I think, about some of the attendance information. And I'm not familiar with that, but what I can tell you to the question regarding transportation, of course, our numbers were very few today and probably will be throughout the week. I can tell you this time last year, we were averaging over 700 per day as far as transportation. But the few that we did have, and I can give you an exact number. I don't have that this evening, but I can report that out to you at some point here in the near future. But Ms. Carolyn Barnes did report that there were no issues regarding transportation, with students finding the proper bus and or getting them home, without any issues. She reported that there were no issues with that today. So that was certainly good news, and I just wanted to share that. Speaking of transportation, I wanted to share Ms. Barnes last week had met with all of her staff and went over some of the latest guidance from the Department of Health and the Department of Education regarding transportation, use of masks, being mindful of that, disinfecting the buses. And I'll describe, I think I shared some of that during the last meeting, but I'll also touch on it here shortly when I talk about some of the PPE that has been purchased and issued. And then one other thing I wanted to share with you, just because of COVID, it's affected our routes. And Ms. Carolyn actually looked at absorbing some of the routes. We've had some bus drivers retire and leave service. And so she was able to actually look at the routes and absorb 3 of those, which was a good thing because not only will we be able to efficiently cover those routes, but we're not having to replace 3 different drivers. And when we looked at that, that's going to give us a savings of over $46,000 as compared to, this time last year. So that's certainly helpful to the district right now. Regarding child nutrition, I'd shared with you a few months back the need to approve the purchase of the Ventahood replacement projects at both high school and elementary school. Those projects have been completed and they are in service now. And then I also want to share with you, we've had plexiglass barriers installed in addition to the existing sneeze guards on all of the serving lines in every cafeteria, which should help us with some of the, where social distancing may be an issue in trying to, to pick up food, that will certainly help with that. Regarding maintenance, I just wanted to share they've been great in helping get some of the PPE, the protective equipment that we've ordered. They've assisted with distributing some of that to the campuses, in addition to to processing their work orders. And I can tell you, they've had a lot. A lot of it's just routine maintenance, but again, they've been very helpful in assisting with distribution of some of this PPE. I want to share with you also regarding safety and security. Just not sure if everybody's aware, but we do currently have a CSSO position open that we're looking to fill. We've been advertising probably close to 3 weeks. We've had one applicant, and we're looking at probably closing that here in the near future. So I just encourage you, if you know of a good candidate, please, by all means, we would encourage them to apply. They can find that information on the school website. So again, I would certainly encourage you, if you know of a good candidate, please send them our way, and we'd be glad to interview them. In the meantime, I've reached out to the Blytheville Police Department. They have been assisting us. They were great today. They've had some officers at actually multiple campuses today throughout the morning and the afternoon. So they're certainly willing to help us with our needs as far as security. Regarding some of the PPE, I just wanted to share with you, we've issued both cloth masks to all the campuses, to where all staff, faculty, and students could be issued at least 3 of the cloth masks. And then we've also issued disposable masks, to where if, say, somebody should forget a cloth mask or lose it, or it's damaged, we can replace that with a disposable. And we've got plenty of those in stock. So we're in good shape there. Also, you may have heard of the N95 respirator masks. And we received guidance from the Department of Health, actually shortly after this pandemic caused the school closure, as far as how and where we should issue those. And primarily, the guidance they've given us is to issue those to our nurses and any individuals that may be assisting the nurses with screening. I'm thankful to say that we've actually been able to receive some of those within the past couple of weeks, and have distributed those to all of our nursing staff and the appropriate personnel. Clear face shields. We've purchased close to 500 of those to issue in addition to the face coverings for any staff or faculty that would like to use those. We've informed everyone they're not to replace the face covering, but that, that they can be used to add some additional protection there for anybody that may want to use one of those. Same for disposable gowns. Again, we received guidance that we should be issuing those to medical personnel and those that may be performing screenings. So again, we're in good shape there. Those have been issued, and we still have plenty in stock. And then disinfectant spray and wipes. And I think I shared this during our last meeting. The Clorox wipes, the Clorox brand in particular, the chemical that's used, they've been pretty scarce, and we have been able to secure some of those, but at a premium price. And I'll be glad to share with you, about 4 times the normal price. So that's been pretty difficult. We've been fortunate in that we've had plenty of disinfectant spray that is rated to kill coronavirus. And we've been able to issue some of that. And our vendor has ran out, but they've been able to replace that with another brand that's also rated to kill coronavirus. So we've been able to distribute some of that, and we're supposed to have more of that in by tomorrow. We'll get that out as well. But in addition, and again, I think I shared this during the previous board meeting, we've also issued foggers, commercial foggers to all the campuses. We've issued 2 of them to the service center to service the buses, to fog the buses after use in the morning and the afternoon. But just to give you an idea, like a classroom, the average classroom that we have here at Blytheville Schools can be fogged within about 2 minutes. And unless we actually have an incident where there's an outbreak, that's typically being done towards the end of the day. Again, I've shared before, we partnered with our cleaning service to make certain that they're concentrating on high touch point areas such as doorknobs, sinks, hallways, high traffic areas as far as disinfecting on a daily basis, and then topping that off or ending that basically with the use of the foggers every day. So we do have that in place, and it's been very helpful as far as for disinfecting purposes. I think somebody mentioned the hand sanitizer earlier. We have installed hand sanitizer dispensers to the campuses to be mounted on the hallways or within the hallways, and then also on pedestals that or stands that can be placed near points of entry. And those are in place as well. And then in addition to that, we've ordered almost 3,000 8-ounce bottles of alcohol-based hand sanitizer to issue to every staff, faculty, and faculty member and students as well. So we're in really good shape there. And I also wanted to touch on one other thing. I'm not sure if I'd shared this with you previously, but through the CARES Act funding, we've been able to replace some of the water fountains at our campuses with bottle filling stations. And I just wanted to share, we had a suggestion today to also maybe look at replacing some of the old water fountains in our cafeterias. So we're looking at that as well. But the CARES Act funding has helped us tremendously with PPE. And talking to some of the other area school districts, I think we're in really good shape for keeping our students and our staff and faculty members safe with some of the PPE that we've been able to obtain and distribute. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Harper.
Yes, ma'am.
Can our kids that are asthmatic, can they wear the face shields as opposed to the masks?
I believe they could. I would suggest that perhaps to cover the district, if there's any medical documentation, maybe they could provide. But we have those, and we'd be certainly glad to issue those.
It has not been brought up as a problem by a parent or anything?
Not to my knowledge, but
that's great.
We're in the first day, so it could very well. But I would just suggest if we're issuing something like that, I would recommend maybe some kind of medical documentation just to cover us if we're issuing that type of equipment.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harper, you said the mask was distributed to the staff. Who did you say those masks was distributed to?
To staff, the staff and faculty and students, any students that may want them as well, both cloth and disposable. We've ordered cloth youth masks as well as disposable youth masks that can be used for, they're rated typically for students that are 10 years of age and younger is the recommendation for the youth masks.
Correct. Yeah, I heard that in the governor's briefing recently.
Yes,
what about how regular do you fog the bathrooms? Since I know you can't do it during the day with the staff and the kids are there, but how regular are you all, the cleaning crew is going to sanitize disinfect the bathroom?
Yes, ma'am. We have an addendum to our contract where that is a daily requirement. And after the students have left, is when the cleaning staff begin those routines.
Oh, that's it's the same. It had changed.
Ye-
Even disinfecting the tables and the chairs and all that stuff, that cleaning, that contract crew is gonna take care of that, is responsible for that, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If I could add, there's an action item that I'll be glad to share. I think Mr. Ashley and I are probably going to speak to it here shortly regarding desktop partitions. And that's one other thing I was just going to mention that we're looking at and would consider pending board approval to use at our campuses. And I can speak to that here in a little more detail whenever we get to that particular action item.
Mr. Harper, I'm not sure if this question is best directed to you, but I had a teacher request or question about wearing scrubs to work. The thought being that they could go home and disinfect their clothes and wash them on hot and not worry about bringing infection into the home. I don't know. I realize that it's not professional dress, but I didn't know the administration had thought about that as far as a safety measure for teachers.
I think it's a good suggestion. Honestly, I've not had that conversation with any of the administrators or Mr. Ashley. I will say that about, I'd say probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I was in contact with Dr. Fletcher, who leads the testing for COVID at St. Bernard's there at the ASU campus. And just looking at discussing PPE needs, and he actually mentioned what you just mentioned as well, in that they're easy to remove at the end of the day, and to throw he said his daily routine is to remove them and walk straight into his laundry room, throw them in a washer and begin washing those clothes just to avoid potential contamination at home. So I'd say it's probably a good idea, a good recommendation.
Ms. Carrington, I didn't catch the very first. Did you say what type of apparel?
It was a request or a question from a teacher if it would be something that was available as far as our policy on dress and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but what type of apparel did you?
Scrubs.
Oh yeah.
Scrubs.
We all the teachers to wear scrubs.
Mr. Ashley's sound is not coming through very well, but I can tell you that we did meet after a request last week with all the principals, and everyone agreed that they were completely fine having teachers wear scrubs in their buildings. So as soon as that teacher brought it to our attention last week, I think it was maybe Wednesday or Thursday, we met and all principals agreed that that was fine.
Did y'all not hear me at all?
Not very well, Mr. Ashley. It's very low volume.
And I have a question. Will the wearing of the scrubs be because of this, right? The COVID-19?
Yes.
And it won't be from this point forward. They can just wear scrubs next year, year after that, and year after that. It's just
right.
for
It's
this.
It's just because of COVID, just for
Okay.
the mention of what Mr. Harper was talking about,
Yes.
being able to go home and wash them. And obviously, as you get into the older grades, you want to look a little bit more professional than you do in the younger grades, but just because of the age of the students. But if you can make them look nice, even adding a scrub top perhaps to a pair of pants that is also very washable, that looks a little bit nicer than the full scrubs even.
If you'll give me a second, let me get on this computer here and see if I can get off of this one, and so you can hear me.
Ms. Cook, while he's doing that, and Mr. Harper, y'all might be able to respond to this. I know we had some questions about child nutrition as far as meal availability and to virtual students and students who are present. And can you just explain to us how they're currently working?
Mr. Harper, do you want to answer that, or I can answer that, either one?
Well, I'm just going to add, so what we've discussed now, as far as interest, I think there were about 20 parents of virtual students that had expressed an interest in meals. However, we're working out a plan to consider distributing meals to both Williams Park and Cypress Park beginning next week with our, when we anticipate our full return. So we're looking at distributing meals to both of those areas for pickup. And we base that upon what we did back in the spring. We received a lot of positive feedback as far as that being a convenient location. So, and that may change. It may evolve depending on interest. But so far, we've only had about 20 parents express an interest in as far as virtual students in the meals. But we believe that's a good place to start. And again, as that evolves, we can certainly evaluate that and look at other points of distribution as well if needed.
I do
Is
know
that
also that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask him, is that breakfast and lunch, you all going to try to provide that in those two locations for the 20 students that chose a virtual?
Yes, ma'am. It would include both a breakfast and a lunch. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to add to this, then you can have the floor, Mrs. Cook. I want everybody to hear me loud and clear. I hope that it be monitored than it was this summer for everybody to be driving up in those cars to get that breakfast and that lunch. I don't care if we have extras or whatever. We got to draw a guideline somewhere, like I said, because they could have went to school, traditional, but that's what they chose to do. But since the government, we got that money with that SNAP program, that's fine. And they are counted as if they were in school. But I would like to make sure Mr. Ashley, nobody else, Mr. Ashley is the superintendent of this district, is to make sure that it's monitored.
Yes, ma'am. I'm back on now. And now it's the echo, isn't it?
Did you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. Since these parents concerned about these lunches, want these people to bring this lunch out here for them to eat, and half of the students didn't get up to 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon anyway.
Well, that's what I was going to report out after. Am I okay speaking? No. Chris, open up your mic. Do I need to kill this one over here?
Yes, sir. Go ahead and close out of the other one.
Okay.
Then just unmute yourself on the new one.
Unmute this one, though. Okay, now unmute the one you're on, Mr. Ashley. Unmute the one that you're on, Mr. Ashley. Yeah, there you go. Much better.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was actually going to give a update on that after Mr. Harper was talking, and was just going to let you know what we're doing there. We've advertised to all of our virtual students that they could, there's a place at each one of their schools that they could sign up and they could come up and get their meals. Now, let me explain it this way. It's not going to be like it was back in the spring. Back in the spring,
I hope not.
They pretty much gave it to us as far as the method in which we delivered the meals. And that was, pretty much whoever came up and pick up the meals got them. And believe me when I tell you, we had a lot of people come and pick up meals, over that period of time we were doing it. So what we've done is this first week, we've offered, anybody that wants to sign up, they can come to the schools and get their meal. breakfast and lunch. I think we've had 20, is that right, Mr. Harper? It was 20 or 21.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Parents had signed up to say they wanted to come and get the meals. Now, what our plan is, because we just can't cook for everybody every day and them not come and pick it up. I mean, that's just going to be a huge waste of money, and one, we can't afford it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to get some data. We will deliver starting next Monday in Williams and Cypress Park, where they can come and pick up the meals. Now, that's going to have to be our gauge. And obviously, if more people come to pick up their meals, and they'll have to have an ID. Students already have some form of ID. Students should have had their IDs from last year on the secondary level. And if on the primary and elementary, they all have a number, but the parents know that PIN number. But we also can send out, I think, an ID to all of our virtual students with a scan bar on their card. We won't have a picture on it, but they can come and pick up the meal, and they all are going to have to be scanned. That's going to be the difference between last spring and this year, is that everybody that comes and gets the meal are one of our students, and they are going to, because they've qualified for it. So once we see how many people are actually coming to get the meals, we may need to add a third place, because if one position, two positions can't do it, we may need to add a third. But we don't want to just take tons of meals down there and give away, because we're not seeing a whole lot of interest of people saying that they could come and pick them up. And I'm not doubting that some of them do have difficulties in travel, but not all of them do. I mean, we all know folks got transportation for when they need it or when they want it. So it's one of those things where we've got to find what data tells us. Are these students really going to come and get the meals, or will the parents come and get it for them, such as they've got the ID or the PIN, and then obviously, and they have to have an ID to identify that they're there, who they say they are, for the child. And then once we know who they are, we wouldn't be asking for an ID every day, but they'd still have to either have their card to scan it, or either they'd have to know their student's PIN number, which comes on the primary level and the elementary level. So at this time, I'd entertain any questions.
Is that okay? Is it safe to have the food being brought out? I mean, I noticed like if we got this concession stand, we can't have open food out to be sold. So is it safe to bring it out? And how are we delivering this food? Do we have a food truck that's gonna carry this stuff out and keep it hot and cold? So I'm just right there. That's a concern that it raised with me, that we're taking food from one place to another for pickup. When
That's a very good question, Mr. Lewis. A very good question, because there is some concern about temperature level. We had that same concern back in the spring, but now it's kind of a different ball game. There's more accountability with this, because we will be checked to make sure that we're procedurally doing everything correct. Let me tell you how I based our deal on trying to get parents to sign up and come to the school. I checked with two schools that are similar. One's a little bit smaller, one's a little bit larger in our demographics, to see, okay, how are they handling it? And they're both, having pickups at their schools also, because it really is a challenge for our cafeteria ladies to plan two types of meals now. because the same meal will not be going out to the students, because that meal that our students are eating every day at school is cooked. The meals that we will be sending out to our students will not be a cooked meal. It will be a pre-packaged or everything will probably be in the bag, because we want to set up a system with as least amount of people, hands, and things like that meal is touched. But the temperature, yes, ma'am, there's some concerns there, Miss Lewis, and we're trying to, but we want to feed our kids. We really, really do. But there are some barriers this go around that is making it a little bit difficult. The best plan is if everybody would come and pick up their meal. Us set it up. Well, it's already set up because that's the way we started off today. But I mean, we will not be able to deliver house to house. I mean, it's just not feasible for us to do that. And I doubt very seriously if you're going to be able to find any of our employees that are just going to be willing to do that. But for a bunch of different reasons. One, there's a pandemic. Number two, there's a safety issue on, folks don't know folks.
Well, why was it even an option? Why did we give them a second option? That's what why was there a second option? If we're going to feed them at school, that's it. Why do we say we're going to have a station to deliver? Why? I mean, and when we knew we had all of this against us.
No, we brought that up, Mrs. Lewis, excuse me, Mr. Ashley, at the last meeting. And I didn't think that made any sense. It was one of you all brought that up about feeding these kids for virtual. And also it was a question brought up, will they be able to, at the same time, to participate in extracurriculum, those other activities. And my view, I sit and listen at y'all. My view would have been no for either one of them. If they didn't want to come to school, they don't even have to, don't even worry about trying to participate, because we don't know what they bring in out there practicing with our other students in sports. And then the idea about trying to, and I meant to look that up, Mr. Astor, with DESE and some other schools as well. Why are we, like Mrs. Lewis said, volunteer or even suggest about trying to get meals to those kids? Those kids was eating this summer, and they was eating up until and gonna eat. And I'm here to tell you, most of those kids, those not the little small kids, well, they sleep too, because they stay up. So why are we going through all these changes like that? And we need to be more careful in sitting here, I'm talking about the board, and listen and be realistic about some things. We cannot just constantly just do stuff that don't have anything to do with the academics. Now, y'all can go continue.
Mr. Ashley, are we still on YouTube live?
Yes, sir,
Yes, sir.
we are.
Okay, I was just checking. I just was wondering.
Yes, because it's a lot of people been weighing in, right? And with all of me and a whole bunch of us, all these questions, it's basically the same thing in a way, especially about the safety and spreading disease. And I really didn't understand this about having a concession stand open, gonna sell food and have people walking and spreading. Then you started talking about spreading the disease.
Mr. Ashley,
I mean, trying to stop it.
Will these be saved on the YouTube Blytheville School District's page? These recordings of these meetings?
Mr. Williams, will they?
We've not made that decision yet.
Who makes that decision? I'm sorry.
Evidently I do, I guess.
No.
May I ask why, Mr. Hammond, why you asked that question?
No, I just had a couple of emails come where some people had missed the earlier part of the meeting. So no, you guys can go ahead and.
Oh yeah, I did.
Ms.
Yeah,
Karen,
I did too. I did too.
Ms. Carrington, I thought we said at the last meeting that we were going to try to get the previous meetings that were recorded onto that platform. So I'm not sure if that's a Chris or a Bobby Ashley decision, but I think the community needs to know what's happening at our board meetings and get this information out to them as well.
Well, all we're required to do is record it, but save it. The decision to put it out to the public, and of course, now keep in mind, the reason that we're doing the Zoom this way was because there were people, I guess, that were saying that they wanted to, see our board meetings. Of course, we always had an opportunity for anybody to come here and view our board meetings.
So this will help me real quick. If you can just save it and just send me the link, I guess they can FOI it, the Freedom of Information Act it, and get it as well. But after every meeting, if you can just send me the link, we can post it somewhere. And, I think it'll be good for the community. Thank you.
Let me check with legal on that, Desmond, before I say yes on that.
That was really a good question and statement, Mr. Hammond.
I personally don't see any reason for us not to post the meeting. It is open to the public, and if the public would like to see it, then I feel like we should have a straightforward way for them to access it.
Yeah.
Mr. Ashley, may I add one thing about the food? I did want to mention to the board that, Shirley Bird is our social worker, and she has been contacted by at least 3 people that I'm aware of that are homeless and are having difficulty with food. And so we're not going to ignore a situation like that. Our principals also are usually very aware of any student who's having a food issue in their home. And just like we've sent home backpacks of food in the past on the weekends, if we're made aware of a situation where there's a family who just isn't getting food, then we will make that effort to make sure that we're connecting with them one way or another, just like we always have through a backpack program or something else. So although we may not be going out into the community taking meals, I do want to make it clear that we're not going to just not provide for a family that we know is in need, in true need, and not just asking for something. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that.
Ms. Cooks, I have something to ask you on that. Now, I heard what you just said. Do you think it's feasible? Are you all going to prepare backpacks and send those home? You remember how germs and stuff travel? This is what I'm trying to say. Y'all saying one thing, but you want to do another thing. I wouldn't want to accept a backpack from you, sending it out to the school. To a student. You can't do that.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to use like plastic bags instead of the backpacks, because the backpacks
you still touching those plastic bags, Ms. Cooks, if you even fixed up pre-prepared, or those potato chips and juice, that still carry germs.
Yes, ma'am. We would absolutely go by any Arkansas Department of Health guidelines before we did it. But I do want to make sure that we have had homeless students in the past who have had food needs. And if we're going to meet their educational need, we have to meet their food needs as well in some cases. That's not real common, but we do have some. And I just want to make sure that that the board understands that there are some situations that we'll contact Ms. Bird, who is our homeless liaison, in those situations.
I have a question on homeless. Where those kids are sleeping at? When you say homeless, where are they? They're not just on the street under the bridges. Now think about that for what Ms. Bird said. And kids going to school, they got to be under somebody else's guardianship or in somebody's home. And you got these DHS facilities around here in the county that feed those kids. Are they at your house?
Some of them are in hotel rooms. Some of them are partnered with other families.
that attend school, Miss Cooks, that's attending school age kids?
Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
here, let me interject on that. It- When kids enroll and they answer the questions of someone can be considered homeless if they're just an aunt and have moved in with an aunt and uncle. Those students can be considered or will be considered homeless by the state of Arkansas guidelines. So
And in that case, they may have all their needs met, but there are
Yeah.
some cases where, you know, they're living after a burnout or something like that, where they're in a hotel. There are different situations. I'm not saying that we right now have a list, but I do know of three people who have contacted Ms. Bird with a concern. And my point is only that we will look at every concern and make sure that we're meeting those needs. And if it's a situation where they don't truly need it, then we won't provide it. But if they are truly in need, we'll make sure that they are served by some agency in the town, even if it's not us, because
And
Thank
Miss
you.
Miss Cook, to back you up, there is a lot of kids living in hotels.
yes, ma'am.
The little small hotels in Blytheville, there is. That is a true statement.
We have
And
buses that pick
we
them up.
have quite a bit. Yes, we do.
Yeah, our buses do stop at several hotels to
Yes,
pick our
we
children
do.
on the way.
So, but to carry on this conversation about feeding our students, we want our students to be fed. I mean, we do. We want them to be fed, but we're providing a way for them to get a meal. I mean, I think very few of our students or our students' parents don't have transportation of some type to be able to come and get their meal. But with that said, all the concerns that you had mentioned, Ms. Lewis, about the temperature and things, those are things that every school is trying to work through right now when they say, hey, we're taking food out into the community for drop-offs for people to come and get it. You know, that's almost an oxymoron type deal where there's a pandemic, you want to stay away, you don't want to touch, but yet we're touching everything that we're taking to the kids. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to limit us touching the food. But you know, 20 people signing up to come and get food. I mean, I think that told us a lot. You know, that I think
Mr. Ashley,
they're not interested in coming. I don't know. Yes, sir.
Mr. Ashley, let's kind of move this along. But I will just to point out, we have 903 students that are doing virtual learning. That leaves 880 students in Blytheville, Arkansas to feed themselves. I think we may be jumping the gun to say that they don't have a need or that the needs are being met for those 880. So we'll wait to hear from you and the decision that you have made to deliver these meals to Cypress and Williams Park, and then we'll gauge it from there. We can sit here and go back and forth of the hypotheticals, the what ifs and maybes, but we know we have a point of need with our children in our city, community, and in our school district. And I hope that we'll work diligently to meet that need for child nutrition in our community. We can throw many different scenarios out, but we need to have a heart of compassion for our students.
Well, I mean, I know you want to move on, Mr. Hammett, but
no. I think we do have a
line that we're not because
Mr. Ashley, I've heard a lot of different things, from homeless students to questioning the need for students that may be doing virtual learning. They may not need food. So I'm saying let's continue to lead with the heart of compassion and to want to make sure that all our children that need food or that we can provide lunch to, that it's available for them. I'm not saying that we're not, but we just need to, you know, give this some time and thought as to what we're debating and discussing right here, right now.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. And thank you, Mr. Ashley and Ms. Cook, for y'all's reports. I think what Desmond's saying is that he would like, and I think it would be good for us just to stay abreast of what's happening in child nutrition as the situation with the coronavirus and our approach to doing this goes forward. So if next time you just continue to give us an update, that would be great.
Yes, ma'am.
If there are no further questions, we'll move on to action items. And if the board members would please make a note to add action item G, which is the awards assembly, and whether or not we're going to rename it or how we will move forward with that. So are there any questions about the action items, or Mr. Ashley, would you like to present on some of the action items?
Yes, ma'am. I've changed the microphones a little bit here. Is that affecting anything?
Much
good, better? Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. On the AirEvac renewal, we'd like to renew that again this year. Even though it's around the same price that it was last year, even though we had a reduction in the amount of people that were applying, but it's gone up $5 a person also. So it was almost a wash. It's, even though it is still lower than what we paid last year, but it's $5 more per employee. But I'd like to really see that be renewed. Also, we have a couple of, you don't do one at a time, Ms. Carrington?
Sure, why don't we do that?
Okay.
If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I have a question.
Okay.
Mr. Ashley, is the board still going to be able to get in on that and pay it ourselves?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept action items A and B.
I'll make a motion to accept action items A and B.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. Johnson for action items A and B. Do I have a second?
A second.
And a second from Ms. Sims. And we will now vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and hold it up for Teresa so she can get a good count. We have Ms. Lewis, Ms. Carrington, Ms. Wells, Ms. Johnson, and Tracy, and Mr. Fair. I missed you. So it's all in favor, Ms. Watley. The motion passes. Can I get a motion for action item C, the AirEvac renewal?
That was for that, wasn't it?
That was A and B.
All right.
Well, she had said C.
I make a motion that we accept action item C.
Okay.
A second.
From Ms. Johnson. A second from Ms. Sims again. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a vote. Everyone raise your hand if you're in favor. All right. That is everybody again. Unanimous approval, Ms. Watley. The D, statement of assurances. I'll entertain a motion, or Mr. Ashley, would you like to say something?
Well, I was just going to, there are two, and these are yearly that we have to do, and their statement of assurance is on standards, and the other one is on federal programs assurance, and that's just obviously assuring that we will follow the guidelines of what is within those assurances.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Ashley? If not, I'll entertain a motion for action item D, statement of assurances.
I make a motion that we accept action item D.
All right. In a second,
Second.
from Desmond, Mr. Hammett. Is there any further discussion? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. And it is unanimous again. Passes. Action item E, the for, licensed personnel and classified personnel for COVID emergency leave.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Ashley, will this hold true for teachers also that test positive? Will they be counted absent for 14-day quarantine?
Yes, ma'am, they will be, but now are you talking about the are we on policy 3.3 now?
Yes. We're on action item. Yeah.
Action item E.
Yes.
3.3.
Okay, yeah, that's before the other.
Okay.
The 3.3 is, and actually I can speak to both of them at the same time. 3.3, 3.32.1, and then 8.23.1, what they are, licensed personnel COVID emergency leave. This is the policy that was recommended by the governor from the state's CARE Act's money. He wanted to commit, I think, $20 million to this. And what it does is there is three, and I can actually just read it to you, and it covers both of them. Said the CARE Act committee met early this week and approved the $20 million for the COVID emergency leave funding. This fund provides 2 weeks of paid leave for public school teachers and staff employees. If they're unable to work remotely, requires to isolate or quarantine and meet one of the following conditions: test positive for COVID-19, is experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and seeking a medical diagnosis, and is 3 is a probable close contact. Those 3 things are the only way that someone can qualify for this emergency leave. Now, not to be mistaken with the one that we talked about 2 or 3 months ago, is or even 4 months ago, the FFCRA CARES Act, not CARES Act, but Corona bill, COVID-19 Act, where it has about 6 different reasons that would be applicable for a 2-week leave if you got COVID, if you were, so like that. So, but yes, this is great. It's going to help us protect our people.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Ashley, is that, you said the 20 million that they voted to for this particular policy, is it different than the money that we have already received for coronavirus or COVID-19 preparation?
Yes, ma'am, that's different. The money that was allotted to our district as far as the CARES Act money, that was dedicated to us, and we're advised to spend it on things related to COVID, or because COVID has changed our way of life, just like the things that we're asking for approval tonight, those shields and things like that. That money is dedicated to that. That came to us. This money was part of the state's CARES Act money, because the state was allotted several million, I think, of money, and the governor has say so in that money. So, and there's a committee. So it's no, ma'am, it's not a conflict.
And that money will it be passed on to us and then we forward it to the individual, or how is it distributed?
Okay, now you're talking about the governors.
The 20 million you mentioned for the emergency leave.
Well, now, of course, I know you know this, but I'm going to repeat it. You know, now we weren't. I mean, 20 million was allotted.
Right. Not
right. I wish we would have got it all 20, but no, ma'am. That's just allotted for this COVID-19 emergency leave. And now, when that pot of money runs out, one of two things will happen. It will either run out, or either they'll put more money into it. It all depends on the numbers in the state of Arkansas. How many people are, this is where the COVID numbers go down, hopefully. And if they're going down, that means we're safer. Did I answer your question, Ms. Carrington?
Yes. Are there any other questions on this policy, the COVID emergency leave policies? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we accept action items number E on policy 3.32 and 8.23.
I second.
I have a motion from Mrs. Wells and a second from Mr. Fair. Is there any further discussion? If not, I will entertain a vote. Please raise your hand if you are in favor. All right. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I think that's everybody. Unanimous again. Passes. All right, and now moving on to action item F.
Well, there's a policy in there, Ms. Carrington, that would.
Did I miss one?
Yes, ma'am. There was a new agenda sent out. I don't know if well, no, it should have been. I think it was on. It's on everyone's right. It wasn't the additional one, or maybe it was.
It was additional. That's on the one that she just sent in to us is additional one that clogs in there about the leave on the student with the COVID-19 and the work, making up their work.
Mr. Ashley, so we've just approved action item E, which I'm thinking that is part of that policy. I don't know that we need to I don't think we need a separate action item for it. Is that what you're talking about? Well,
it's something that we want to add as far as attendance for our students.
Okay.
If they're quarantined.
It's not currently contained in the two policies, is what you're saying.
Would you say that one more time, Ms. Carrington?
It's the additional clause for all of the campuses attendance policy pertaining to absences due to COVID-19 is not included in the other policies. You would like us to add that.
Right. And well, this up here, the policies were for employees. This is for students.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a discussion on that when you're ready to address that, Mrs. Carrington.
We're ready, Ms. Wells. Dive in.
Okay. I'm not, you just read it. But I disagree with that personally, my view, because if it was regular school, which it is, and you don't complete your assignment, your grade is affected. So why is it that we want to add this clause in here? If the student primary doctor and Arkansas Department of Health medical professional, we give us the district document on the student that need to be quarantined for whatever reason, they've been in contact with it or they have it themselves. And we want to put in there, if they have assignment and don't for completing their work, and if they don't, then that 14 days or whatever days will be counted as absentee. And I don't agree with that. In other words, you're saying when they bring the documentation in, if they don't complete their work or assignments, you want to go back and take those 14 days and count it as absentee.
Well, what we're wanting them to do their work, because so many, I mean, someone may be in close contact with someone and them be mandatory quarantined. We would expect them to still continue to do their work.
I think that all of that could be satisfied if you use the term, the student is asymptomatic, symptomatic.
Well, it could be asymptomatic or
Well,
just.
If they're asymptomatic and they're staying home, then there's no reason for them not to do their work. If they're symptomatic and they're sick, all they need is a doctor's excuse.
It's good.
But it didn't say that. Read that, Mr. Ashley, to us again, what you wanted to add that in there. It didn't say that, Toby.
I just said all we need to do is add that, and that would solve the problem.
Well, actually, I think even, I don't know that it really has anything to do with whether or not the person has symptoms. I think, you know, if they're having to be quarantined, then it may just be because they were in contact with somebody. And you may also be sick and test positive for the virus and still be able to complete your work virtually. And
I think everybody froze up.
No, I can hear Ms. Carrington and Mrs. Johnson and you as well.
Ms. Carrington, if I may, this piece of the policy is more about the fact that we do have virtual students now, and our virtual students are counted present when they complete their work. So if a face-to-face student is quarantined and sent home, then in effect for that 14 days, they're just like a virtual student. And if they do their work while they're at home, we're not going to hold that against them as an absence. It doesn't really have anything to do with whether we grade the work or whether they get it finished. Any student who is absent always has a chance to make up their work, whether they're sick and have to do it later or whether they're able to do it while they're home. This is really about, instead of holding a child absent for 14 days because they were told they had to quarantine, it gives us a chance to send them home, let them quarantine, do their work, and not have 14 days of absence against them. That's really what this one is about. It saves the student from having extra absences as long as they're able to complete the work.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, that makes really good sense.
Are there any other questions? Do you have any more concerns, Ms. Wells?
No, it's not. That's good for them, but it's not good for me.
Well, this is about the kids.
I didn't say it wasn't. I did not say it wasn't. I'm just waiting. The fact is, the way that he addressed that, want to put that in there. If a kid is home for 14 days, Mrs. Sims.
Credit.
Okay.
Right.
Let me ask you
credit.
I mean,
Get credit for what?
Go vote.
Whether they do. whether they do the work or not.
This is about them being given credit that they won't be counted absent.
I know that.
Okay, then we good.
Okay, why don't we call this EB, action item EB, the additional calls for all of the campuses attendance policy. And this is how to deal with student absences due to COVID-19 for mandated quarantine. Do I have a motion to accept EB?
I make a
Forgot
motion.
it was on YouTube.
I make a motion that we accept action item EB.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Do I have a second?
A second. Tracy.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. Johnson and a second from Ms. Ritchie. And now if everybody will vote, raise your hand. If you're in favor of, please raise your hand on the screen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ms. Lewis,
I'm for.
Desmond. So
I'm not in favor.
okay.
Because I think it's worded wrong too. So I mean, I'm
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
They can't see it. Look at the wording, and then Ms. Cooks always get in and try to explain, and it's still, you know, I'm against it. So go ahead and count. I'm against it.
Okay, well, you could have made a suggestion for correction, but I believe we've already had a vote here and everything has passed. So we've got Aaron is in favor, Ms. Sims, Toby, Tracy, and Desmond in favor. So that would be, and Mr. Fair. So that would be what? 6
to 2.
6 to 2.
And the names need to be recognized, Mrs. Watley.
With
I notice we don't do that. We don't record the names favor or against motions compared to other school board Monday reports that I see in the newspaper. Definitely make sure you record that.
So Ms. Watley, that's Ms. Wells and Ms. Lewis who were not in favor. Okay, otherwise, if EB passes, moving on to action item F, teach cleanly. We should have something in our board packet on the teach cleanly proposal.
I would like to make a move to accept.
All right, I've got a motion from Mr. Hammett to accept the teach cleanly. Is there any discussion? Mr. Ashley, would you mind telling us a little bit about Teach Cleanly?
Sure. They're a company that, of course, that's who we're purchasing these dividers from. The whole purpose, of course, getting the dividers is to give a barrier between our students when we can or when we can't practice the 6-foot social distancing. We looked around, of course, plexiglass prices were as many as we wanted, were just several. To give you an example, you know how our tables are, I guess about 6 foot apart, or they're 5 feet, but we were going to look at putting the barrier between those for plexiglass. You know, we got a price on just one of them, and I think it was $600. Is that right, Mr. Harper?
Yes, sir. $656 per unit.
Yeah, just for one, because it was plexiglass. So we researched and looked and found another company that you can buy these. They have the acrylic where you can see through them fine, and they're cardboard, thicker cardboard. They come in a 2-fold or a 1-fold, really, where it will fold, and you can put it in front of you and to the left of you. But then also we're buying singles where if you wanted to, and I don't know why we'd want to box someone in, but you literally could put it on the side of it, and then you would have a three-way visual out of those. But the way that's going right now, what we want to do is if we put a single up that can be, or fold, you'd put it in the front of it, it'd go to the side of you, and then it will carry forward in the next person. So everybody's got a barrier between them in the front and on the sides. One side of a barrier may be 4.5 foot from you, but it's at least a barrier between you and the next person. We were pretty excited that we found a company that made the cardboard ones. Mr. Harper, you may want to elaborate a little bit more on them.
Sure, just real quick. We looked at several vendors because there was a lot of interest in this particular product from our teachers. And we wanted to try to do something that would be both effective at blocking the aerosol that can come out of your lungs, especially if you're coughing or sneezing or something of that nature. But we were also mindful of cost. And we reached out to local vendors, and it was actually a local vendor that quoted us the acrylic product at $656. We've looked at several out-of-state vendors, similar product, and it was around $500. And then we ran across Teach Cleanly that's offering it's a sturdy cardboard frame with a thick, clear plastic insert. The frame itself is painted with a finish that can be cleaned. So because that was one of the criteria we wanted to look for or include was cleaning this product on a regular basis and it being able to withstand that, which it can. And again, just to give you an idea as far as pricing per unit, I think the single units are averaging a little over $30 per unit. The doubles are around $60, and then the triple partition is averaging around $90 per unit. So much cheaper cost, and it should be just as effective because the dimensions are the same as what the acrylic models are. But again, a lot of savings there to where we can even order additional units for those that may be damaged and replace those as we go along.
Mr. Hopper, we work under the umbrella of kids being warm, safe, and dry. Do that fit up on that category, that product?
I don't know if it would meet that criteria, Mr. Fair. I do believe, and I'll say this, I do believe it would meet the safe aspect of it as far as some of the PPE needs. And again, there's data out there to show that they are effective at blocking that aerosol transfer that comes out of a person's lungs, and blocking that from it being able to move forward and out and away from them.
So this product have been approved by the federal for as being safe for kids to have it operated in the schools?
I don't, Mr. Fair, I don't know if it's received any type of federal rating or an endorsement from any particular agency. I just know that there's been a lot of discussion regarding acrylic or clear type barriers to assist where, again, with the transfer of the aerosol from the lungs, as well as where social distancing may not be able to occur. I'll say this, it's not an end all be all, but it's yet another step in hopefully helping reduce the transmission of COVID.
Mr. Harper, would you mind elaborating a little bit? I know that our enrollment is, well, we have all these virtual students. Do these numbers reflect that enrollment, or is this more for like a full enrollment? I particularly noticed that the middle school and the high school are much more expensive than, say, the elementary, primary.
Yes, ma'am. So what we did when we received Teach Cleanly's sample product, we asked our campus principals to come up and look at it and evaluate it. We wanted them to be comfortable with the product. We didn't want to just arbitrarily choose a product and say, hey, this is what you guys need. We wanted them to come look at it. So we got that feedback, and then we also asked for their input regarding their campus needs based upon enrollment. And my understanding is that the units that they've ordered would be needed because some classes are going to have more enrollment, in-class enrollment than others. But to your question, that's how we arrived at that number. And they may have actually included maybe some extra. I don't know that for sure, but there was discussion about it in case of damage. Should damage occur to some of these units, we could easily replace in a timely manner.
And I assume that all this would be covered in the COVID-19 funding that the school received.
Yes, it would be covered by the CARES Act funding. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Hammett. Do I have a second? Or is there any further discussion?
I second.
A second from Ms. Ritchie. And if there's no further discussion, we'll entertain a vote. Please raise your hand if you're in favor. So Aaron, Ms. Lewis.
4.
And Desmond, you said 4?
Yes.
4, okay, so that's everyone but Mr. Fair, correct? 7-1 passes. Ms. Watley, did you get that? Okay. All right, so moving on to action item G. This is the added item from our previous discussion of old business, the F.E. Lee Terrell Award Assembly.
I will withdraw my motion.
Okay. Do I have a motion in regards to action item G?
Ms. Carrington, I have a question. So I did miss that. So you're not following the agenda. You just going, why are you all didn't do old business in the beginning after the quorum was established?
We did do old business in the beginning. Because there was some discussion, we opted to move this item to action items and make it action item G. And so we have not voted on it yet.
Oh, I see.
And Ms. Johnson had made a motion, which she just withdrew.
So will we change the name to Blytheville High Ward Assembly?
You have to make a motion to do that.
I just have a question.
I mean, by her withdrawing her motion on old business item number B, if you want to make a motion yourself, Mrs. Lewis, to change it, then go ahead and make a motion. Or anybody else, or leave it as it is.
I personally feel that it's not necessarily fair to Ms. Terrell and her accomplishments, and it would discount her accomplishments, that the original people voted to name the assembly after her, to take that away from her. That's my personal feeling.
Okay, I have a question. Do you know anything about her personally? I mean, I'm just asking a question, or anybody. What did she contribute that it was changed from used to be what it used to be, Carolyn, when you guys used to go to school? Because I didn't attend Blytheville High.
It was baccalaureate.
Yeah, well, that was mostly what everybody did.
I've just asked community members about Miss Terrell, and I was told that she was a great guidance counselor and was a really an asset to the school. And that's all I know about her. But you know, I guess I feel like if someone at that time decided to name the award assembly after that, it was probably for good reason.
It might have been for good reason. That was then for those people there. But we talking about now in this generation and time, there has been other people that has been good access to Blytheville School District and more or less contribute, as mentioned by Jan St. Clair, for instance. So like I said, I'm glad that you did your groundwork on there, but I don't know anything about her. But since it was brought up about Mrs. Johnson, about changing it to her, and then she don't withdrew it. But as far as me looking at the fact of what she used to do or what somebody said, naturally, I can say what somebody did. It might have been not been all that to me or someone else in the community. It might have been just okay for them and the way they looked at that. But it's up to you all. If you all want to continue to change it, continue on with it, we
I would like
can.
to make, I would like to
You
make
make
a motion that we, I would like to make a motion that we change it to Blytheville High School Ward Assembly. And that's where nobody will get offended.
I don't worry about people getting offended, but that's good. You feel that way, but I don't. But say your motion again, loud and clear. What's the name of it's academy? What did they don't win change Blytheville High School to? Some kind of academy?
New Tech.
Oh yeah, that New Tech stuff.
Still New Tech? Okay, I thought we changed it. Okay. I would like to make a motion that we change the award assembly to Blytheville High New Tech Assembly.
Could I make
We're dropping
recommendation?
We're dropping the New Tech.
We're
Yeah,
dropping it.
that's
That's
what
what
I
I
say.
thought.
After this year, we're gonna draw away from New Tech, so.
What's academy? What didn't you? I heard you mention that, Mr. Ashley. What does academy come in at?
Well, we've turned into a virtual academy. I don't know if that's what you were referring to or not.
No, that wasn't what I was referring to.
So could Mrs. Lewis's motion be, Mr. Ashley, the Blytheville High School Scholarship and Awards Program?
Right.
Is that what you said, Mrs. Lewis, or that's Mr. Hammett saying
that? That's fine. That's what I'm saying.
Scholarship, Blytheville. Okay.
Mr. Hammett, you asked me, I'm sorry, and I couldn't catch it all. You asked me, was that a good name for it?
Yes.
If you were gonna change it, I think that name encompasses everything that we do in it.
Okay, I'll support that. I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Mrs. Lewis and a second from Mr. Hammett. Is there any further discussion? If not,
what is it they're naming it?
The Blytheville High School Scholarship and Awards Assembly. Is that correct, Mr. Hammett and Mr. Lewis? Miss Lewis, I'm sorry, Miss Lewis.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a vote. Please raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion. So I've got Ms. Wells, Ms. Sims, Ms. Lewis, and Mr. Hammond. I assume you're for it?
Yes, 4.
All right, so that is 4-4. We do not have a we do not have a majority. The motion fails.
Who were the ones for it?
Well, we have to do go ahead and carry the vote out so we can get it for the record as to who's abstaining and not voting for it.
Okay, that's fair, Mr. Hammond. I'm sorry. Okay, so we had Miss Lewis, Mr. Hammond, and Miss Wells, and Ms. Sims in favor. All those who are not in favor, please raise your hand. So that is, so Aaron, Julie Fair, Ms. Johnson, and Ms. Ritchie are against changing the name. So the motion fails.
So just to be clear,
Why are you all, I mean, can I ask, oh, I guess maybe I shouldn't ask that. They was fine with the name that it was for some years ago, 30 years ago. Then now it changed to somebody that somebody said or heard that was so contributed to the district and I guess in the community, which none of us know. And I cannot understand why are they against that in changing that name with what is going on today with the community. It's Blytheville School District.
It's their feelings. No.
are we
If you don't want to
the award, it used to be some kind of 4 against 4. So the motion failed.
the motion fails, so there can either be another motion presented or we can move on with the meeting.
go ahead and move on. I think we may just need to do a little bit more research.
Correct.
I want us to be all inclusive of everyone in our community and district and the kids that are at our school.
Correct.
I understand the contributions of Effie Lee Terrell, but if we're just going to give it a name of a person, we need to consider a lot of people that have shed a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this community for our students and children, and that you can just have a long list of names for every program that you have in the school. But I think just having Blytheville High School Scholarship and Awards program would have made it all inclusive, and for those individuals that contributed so much, we could have
doing now. I agree with you, Mr. Hammond. And doing now.
Yeah, we have to get away from being
right
comfortable just because it's the past and it's always been that way. We have to
exactly.
Okay, well, moving on to personnel recommendations. We have action A, B, C, D, E. That's it. Is there any need to go into executive session?
We don't, but I just have a question for Mr. Ashley. I want to know what the 0.33 FTE is. What does that mean?
Just a third of a teacher's salary.
Okay.
What FTE mean? I mean, what does it stand for?
He just said.
I can't
Third
hear.
of well, that's all right. I can understand the 0.33, but FTE.
Full-time equivalent. Say it,
yeah.
Full-time equivalent.
Full-time employment.
No, it's full-time equivalence.
To us being certified.
Correct, equivalence.
Okay, is there any further discussion or can I have a motion?
I move that we accept personnel recommendations A, B, C, D, E, appointment, resignation, termination of employees as listed.
I second.
That was it, Mr. Fair, did you second?
Yeah, I can, Ms. Wells, either one, don't matter.
Okay, I have a motion from Ms. Ritchie and a second from Mr. Fair. There's no further discussion. I will entertain a vote. Please raise your hands if you're in favor. See. That is got everyone. Desmond, are you voting?
For it.
Okay. All in favor, the motion passes. All right, if there's no further business to come before the Blytheville School Board, we will adjourn.